Great William feigned interest but was easily spotted by Dumbledore. When they both arrived at the ministry, it was a new surprise for William. He had never seen so many adult wizards in one place. The architecture was different from what he was used to, everything had a darker but more elegant tone. Documents flying like paper airplanes from one side to the other, offices to the skies, sculptures in the most striking areas, chimneys everywhere. Basically everything was new to William's eyes, and when he realized he was alone in the middle of all the people, Dumbledore was nowhere to be seen. William could not help but be surprised, but knowing the identity it was difficult to appear and not draw attention. Luckily William was not a child either, at least mentally. After asking in a few places he was able to find the right address. It wasn't easy after all. Meeting with the minister was no small matter, but in the end he reached his goal, to use Dumbledore's name. Hogwarts and the Rosier family in the same sentence carried quite a bit of social weight. When William entered Minister Fudge's office, he noticed 4 people inside, 2 women and 2 men. Chapter 39, Chapter 39, End of First Year, 3. Inside the minister's office was the Minister of Magic himself, Cornelius Fudge. A slightly portly man, grey and wrinkled hair, he could easily be recognized by his style of dress, which would be described as rather odd: pinstripe suit, red tie, long black traveling cloak, purple boots and a lime green bowler hat. William wondered to himself if this minister was descended from a family of clownish magicians. The other man in the office was easily recognizable to William, as it was the one who was supposed to be at his side at all times, Headmaster Albus Dumbledore. The first woman inside the office was quickly recognized as the headmistress of Castle Bruxo, Anna Gimmerys. William had seen a photograph of her in a book while plotting his plan of action. A woman slightly younger than Dumbledore, with dark tez, full lips, wavy grey hair. Her height was only a foot shorter than Cornelius Fudge, but from her eyes William could understand how wise the woman was. Last and not least was the other woman in the room. Because of her dress, age, and position close to Minister Fudge, William could quickly tell that she was the minister of the Brazilian Ministry of Magic, Rita Araújo. William bowed slightly and greeted those present with the utmost courtesy, the 2 women and the headmaster being the first to return the greeting by nodding their heads. Fudge stepped forward and shook hands with William as he smiled vigorously. The world is really different, getting 2 ministers together in the same office just because of a boy, Fudge said, almost laughing. Of course this is an event that formalizes the friendship between the ministries more intensely than before. Minister Fudge should be happy about this, replied Minister Rita with a friendly but at the same time apathetic tone. Besides, this is an academic matter. I was actually surprised when Headmaster Dumbledore himself recommended a student for a temporary transfer to Brazil. Besides, according to the documents that arrived to my office, this young man is in first year and has a lot of potential. Headmistress Anna smiled as she studied William from head to toe. It will be interesting to instruct this young man. I just hope you don't want him to go back to Hogwarts, laughed Dumbledore as he stroked his beard. Headmistress Anne could simply laugh at her counterpart's comment, although William could feel the sparks of revalidation under the table, a bit surprising knowing Dumbledore's personality from the books. Even as they were all gathered for William's temporary transfer, the matters discussed were of varying relevance, and without realizing it William was in the background of the importance. As such, William himself was only listening until when Minister Fudge commented that he had another commitment to attend to. Dumbledore was the first to return to Hogwarts. On the other hand, William accompanied Headmistress Anne and Minister Rita Araújo. Arriving in Brazil was almost instantaneous. William was surprised, but the surprise was greater when he saw everything around him. Different from the polluted city of London. William was appreciating everything around him. The costumes of the people were different. There was not much advancement like in Europe, but it was not of much importance. Minister Rita will be on her way from here, and I suppose we should get to the castle as soon as possible. Your belongings should already be in place, so you need not be worried. With William's nod they both disappeared from the place, and when they reappeared they were in front of large castle of immense height. William swore he had seen it in his previous life while surfing the net, but this was completely different. The building was square, it has many stairs on all 4 sides, at least 200 steps per side, and it was all built with golden rock. According to the books in the Hogwarts library, William knew that the castle was under an enchantment that changes its appearance when Muggles are around. It makes it look like a ruin of the pre-Columbian tribes. Everywhere William looked he could see forest. The books he studied were not so wrong, but to call them forests is simply a fault. The name of this conjunction of trees is jungle. Impressed, asked Principal Anna when she saw William's expression, who nodded without closing his mouth. It's normal, but don't let other students see you like this, everyone will know you are a foreigner. William closed his mouth. Come on, I still have to do all the paperwork for you to start your classes, and we must make you look worthy of our school. William looked down at his Hogwarts robes. I don't look that bad, William muttered, and then followed the headmistress closely. As expected from a school of magic, the golden stairs were enchanted, and these moved just like the escalators in a shopping mall, a detail William appreciated from within. Come on, follow me and don't get lost. Chapter 40, Castle Bruxo, 1. Are you ready? Sort of. Even so, I didn't expect them to wear this color. It's like it's from Slytherin. No, it's not from the Snake House. Everyone here uses green, and it's not as dark as Slytherin but a bit more natural. Got it, I figured out how to use it. Come on out, I need to make sure everything is correct. William stepped out of the fitting room, revealing a multi-piece suit. The boots used by the Castle Bruxo students are made of dragon leather, which has several protective properties. The strings to tighten them are made of Abraxan hair. As for the pants, they were white with a special fabric made of plants that had healing properties. The tunic was emerald with several golden details. At the waist of the uniform was also located a golden belt that symbolized the school. The most important part of the uniform was the cloak of golden color and white details. That cloak had defensive properties against the dark arts, keeping the life of its wearer more protected. How are you feeling? Asked Headmistress Anna. Well, I don't feel cold and it's quite comfortable. William stretched out his arms and looked at himself in a large mirror to see his appearance. Yes, I think this uniform looks good myself. I think so too. Not many students have hair like yours. The headmistress was pleased with William's appearance. She knew of the reputation of the Rosier family, but she was not short-sighted like many and could separate the situations. She should be here by now. The headmistress looked at the clock at the top of her office. Your guardian during your studies at Castle Bruxo, Dumbledore left you in my care and I must return you in one piece, plus you will have trouble familiarizing yourself with everything. William could only lift his shoulders in response with a forced smile. He wasn't entirely pleased, but he was hoping for something like this to happen. Soon the door opened and revealed a girl much more mature than William, around 16 years old, long hair down to her waist but tied in a long ponytail, light blue eyes, freckles on her face and fair skin complexion. Manuela Valdebenito, a student from our South America, Argentina, Rosario to be more exact. She will be your guardian, William. She is an honorable student in her 6th year and has the most outstanding grades among all my students. Principal, you make me blush with embarrassment, said the young girl, partially covering her mouth with her right hand and looking to the side. You said you wouldn't present me with too many compliments. They were just normal words, mentioned the headmistress with a calm expression. Anyway, here next to me is the student I told you about yesterday. William Rosier, a first year at Hogwarts. So this is the student everyone is afraid of, exclaimed the young girl, looking William from head to toe. Walking around him, he doesn't look that scary. Maybe it's the Hogwarts uniform that makes him look more intimidating. To me he's a little chick just hatching from his shell, don't you think, headmistress? The headmistress laughed lightly. You may see it this way, but according to Albus Dumbledore himself, William stopped the theft of the Philosopher's Stone and fought a real Death Eater. He, exclaimed Manuela. Are you sure? Anna nodded. Besides, he wasn't a lesser Death Eater because he carried the will of Voldemort himself as a parasite. The one who can't be named. Manuela, I have told you many times, call him by his name. He is only a dark wizard like many others. If he had existed at the time of colonization, he would have perished like many others by our ancestors, Headmistress Anna mentioned calmly. William on the one hand understood what the headmistress was saying. According to the history of his previous world, South America had a great fame for the witchcraft of the natives. Now that he is in a world of magic, it would be impossible to imagine the true capabilities of the so-called witches or shamans. Still, I wish Harry Potter had attended. I had many illusions of meeting him when he told me about this task as a guardian. I have nothing against you, William, it's just that you know. Harry Potter is the boy who survived, a living legend. No problem, I understand your motives. The truth is that Harry was also involved in the incident, but he wanted to take a break at his aunt and uncle's house, a nice vacation away from studies. William imagined how Harry must be having it at the Dursleys' house, to the point that it brought a small smile to his face. Sigh. I understand, maybe there is a chance next year. I guess if everything goes well this transfer thing could be more usual, couldn't it, headmistress? Manuela tried to lift her own spirits. Sure, anything can be possible. The director moved to her desk. It only took a wave of her wand for several books and papers to move to the desk. These are the materials for your stay. Usually it is the students themselves who have to pay for everything, but the British Ministry coordinated everything. Now, without anything else I should mention, I will leave William in your charge. Manuela, you know what you must do next. Of course, nodded with a smile. Manuela then opened the door. William picked up all the books in his hands and followed Manuela. He could have kept them in his waist pouch, but it was preferable to keep his tricks, they could be useful in the future. Chapter 41, Castle Bruxo, 2. Let's start the tour of the school delivered by your guardian, that's me. Manuela pointed to herself with the tip of her 2 index fingers. Our first stop. The library. The library? Asked William, remembering the words of Madame Pants at Hogwarts. You don't like the library? No, it's nothing like that. William shook his head twice before starting to walk alongside his guardian for the Castle Bruxo presentation. The library was quite different from Hogwarts, as this one was basically a tower in the style of a snail. William stood in the middle looking up, but the view was lost to the floors that followed as if they were an infinity. Surprised? Asked Manuela next to William, also looking up. It's not the biggest library in the world, that's true, but it has many ancient records from all over South America, records from long before the Muggle settlers arrived. All the original peoples gathered their knowledge in this place, so I like to say that our library has knowledge that no other library in the world can boast. Wow! An excellent way of putting it. I would like to deliver a full tour of the library, but I fear we would not finish today. Come on, we still have a lot to go through. Just to give you an idea, the library is enchanted so that there are more floors than can be seen from the outside. Manuela yanked out the surprised William, who was already tempted by her curiosity. Of course she also used her mind's eye to see the end of the library, but the end was out of her range. Next were the classrooms. All the classrooms were located in different towers depending on the year of schooling. There were also a large number of classrooms within each tower. Unfortunately, we won't be able to be together forever. My classrooms are in another pyramid. Manuela was leading William, almost pushing him because he kept looking in detail at everything around him. From the figures on the walls to the doors, William was so interested in the details that he couldn't believe that there were no chairs but no small benches made of solid gold. When he asked about the thieves, Manuela mentioned that everything in the castle had spells that prevented the gold from leaving the castle boundaries. Next stop, you'll love it. Manuela took William running through the halls. It was the first time William was dragged in such a crazy way. Even the surrounding students were staring at them in a rather strange way, but Manuela didn't seem to mind, so William had no interest in it either. When they stopped, they were in a large room with over 1,000 young people of all ages gathered together. They were all eating quietly. The dining room, exclaimed Manuela, this is my favorite part of the day. William saw the young girl's excited expression and could only nod. Yes, I could tell. Well, I think we deserve a lunch break. We can get to know each other a bit more, and you can tell me about your adventure at Hogwarts and about Harry Potter, of course. Come on, we have to find a free table. It only took one look for William to sigh. Finding a free table would be an odyssey for anyone except, of course, for the wielder of the mind's eye. William extended his range of vision and it didn't take him long to find an empty table. Come on, I found a table that no one is using. William took Manuela's hand and guided her to the front among the students as if nothing was happening. William, we can sit at the edge of the dining room, there is always a free table around that sector, mentioned Manuela, pointing to the side. William extended his mind's eye to the indicated spot but could not see any free tables. There's nothing empty, there's only this one, and I think it's the best option. They were already only a few steps away when Manuela stopped in her tracks. No, it's not the best option. That's the table where the members of the Castle Bruxo Dueling Club sit. Besides, their captain is Ananamiru, is the son of an Ariki and direct descendant of Hotue Matue, who is said to be the first Ariki or king of Rapa Nui in the 6th century, long before the founding of Castle Bruxo or Hogwarts. It's best not to get in the way of those kind of people. The best option is to avoid trouble and use your head. I guess you're here for using your head, right? William stared at the changes in Manuela's facial expression and decided not to pursue the matter. She was right after all. Avoiding trouble was also her way of life. If it wasn't for her plans, she would never have faced Voldemort. Still, William was now curious about the person called Ananamiru. Finally, after going around the dining room a few times, he was able to find a free seat where Manuela seemed to have no objections. There William recounted the events of the Philosopher's Stone as he had experienced them, plus a mixture of the original events so he could have more details. Manuela asked a myriad of questions about Hogwarts and William answered as much as he could. After lunch the tour of the castle had to be resumed. The next place to visit was one that William was looking forward to seeing. The Farms for the Care of Magical Creatures. Chapter 42, Chapter 42, Magical Creatures and Future Targets. These are the magical creature farms of Castle Bruxo. Exactly, what do you think? Both students had entered a space away from the pyramids of Castle Bruxo, going into the Amazon jungle itself, where only brave muggles or the very foolish entered. Amongst all the jungle there was a designated space similar to farms or zoos to keep all the magical creatures destined for studies in different places. William on one hand didn't expect it to be this way. I mean, everything was greener and more natural than Hogwarts. It's like he was in a different world than his normal school year. Is that an aguary? Asked William when he saw the greenish-black oviparous bird standing on one of the branches, in a section away from the farm. Manuela nodded at William's question. Fabulous, I saw it in a book and I like its story too much. The ancient wizards believed that it was a harbinger of death, and the truth is that it only sings when rain is coming. On the other hand, it is also known as the Irish phoenix. Yes, that's what they teach us at the castle. As you can see, I'm a 5th-year student and I've already had my chance to investigate Mr. Damaris. Damaris? Asked William, staring at his guardian. Are you kidding me? She has been in this place for a long time. She arrived with a group of traffickers. Luckily the headmistress got rid of all the traffickers as soon as they entered the jungle. She? The headmistress knows the location of all the people inside the Amazon jungle. It is the power of the headmaster of Castle Bruxo after all. As William listened to Manuela's account, the description and use of the Amazon jungle became familiar to him, just like an old Marauder's map that should now be in the possession of the Weasley House twins, and even though William was tempted to steal it, he decided to give it a little more time. Both students walked around the farm. William could see various special creatures all over the place, being more and more surprised by Castle Bruxo. That is, Hogwarts was a phenomenal school and he still had a lot to discover firsthand. But much of that he had already seen in movies, or else he had imagined it while reading the books. But Castle Bruxo was different. There was no detailed description, no indication of what was in front of him. He really had no idea about anything regarding this school and its teachings. Every time Manuela showed him something, it was as if he was in a tourist attraction. Damaris doesn't take his eyes off your wand, mentioned Manuela, holding the aguary in her arm as if it were an eagle. My wand is made with the core of a fairy. It is obvious that Damaris will be attracted. It is his favorite food after all. William closed the special pocket in his tunic to keep the wand out of Damaris' beak. He didn't want to stay without his most important tool. What caught William's attention the most was a small blue bird fluttering around Jobber Knoll, mentioned the white-haired man holding a small feather in his hands. You can keep it, said Manuela, handing some more feathers in the white-haired man's hands. We have a lot of raw materials in the castle. Many students are dedicated to collect raw materials from here to use in their tests when practicing for potions classes. The headmistress also thinks it is a good method to help us with familiarity towards magical creatures. Does it work? Not much. Many students still prefer to buy the supplies while other students spend hours gathering materials and selling them to their peers. Quite a valid business method. Manuela lifted her shoulders as she turned around, but the level of Castle Bruxo students in potions is not the best in the world, even if the advanced potions book. Unfortunately, our teachers have never been the best. Hogwarts is lucky in that sense. Severus Snape and Horace Slughorn, both are excellent potions teachers. Watching as Manuela talked about Hogwarts, William could find some resemblance to his own experiences, both longing to know each other's school, hoping to learn more from the other side. Only difference is that William had made it in his first year while she was already in 5th year and still in the castle where she started as a student. Why did you leave Hogwarts? I didn't leave it, I just went away during the vacations to learn more. Why Castle Bruxo and not another school? At his guardian's question, William stroked his chin, looked around and sketched a smile full of admiration. I wanted to see all this, to know a little more about the area in which I am specializing at the moment. I feel that magical creatures is the beginning to understand more about magic, since they are the ones who have the most contact with magic in a more natural way. And why not other schools? Every school has its specialty and I plan to visit them all, or as much of them as I can. That's 11 official schools, you won't have enough time. Then I will fail a grade to have enough time to study in other schools. I heard that Uagadou specializes in star reading, divination, and magic without hands. Besides, their uniforms are special and they always work barefoot. I'm sure my next destination will be Uagadou. William spoke with a tone full of confidence while collecting materials around the farm. Mahout Okoro is a more rigorous school in terms of dark magic practices, but I like their teachings. I heard that their Quidditch teams are the best. On the other hand, Ilvermorny has a reputation almost similar to Hogwarts. I want to see that school. Boston's and Dumstrang are almost definite targets in my agenda. I have a lot to do. Do you think you can make it? Believe? Asked William to Manuela's doubt. No, I don't think so. I know I'm going to make it because I want to make it. I want to know more about this world, and I think there are many things that can be learned from all these places. I mean, with such a big world, it's practically certain that many creatures and much knowledge are still hidden. Chapter 43, Chapter 43, A Different Experience. Do you have ability, William? Ability? Asked William, looking at Manuela to know what her question was about. They have only been 3 days since their classes started and he hadn't done anything special. The truth was not interested in standing out too much, but of course he had to do it if he wanted to get points to attend another school during the next summer. You can find your way around the castle without any problems. All the students in their first days usually get lost, and I think your classmates expected you to get lost. I heard them commenting on the disappointment during the breaks. I actually got lost in my first few days too, and I wanted to see your expression when you complained about it. Hogwarts is also a maze with that changing staircase thing. I have a bit of experience. William scratched his hair. He couldn't get lost due to the existence of the mind's eye, but it wasn't a matter that was easy to bring up when you don't have a logical answer. Besides, it's useful as a card up your sleeve for the most unexpected moments. Anyway, I think your classes are over, then you should come with me. Today the Quidditch Cup starts, and while it's not like Hogwarts where you compete by houses, here there is a way to see selections by country of birth. Wizards line up for their respective teams to compete every year, and today Argentina plays against Brazil. You should come with me to support my country. But I'm not from Argentina. That doesn't matter, I am your guardian and you must be close to me, therefore you must also support the team I support. Come on, you have to paint your face for the occasion. Manuela pulled William, running again through the corridors as if it was a playground. No one would think that she was one of the most outstanding students of Castle Bruxo, and it is likely that if she was at Hogwarts, Snape would have taken several points from her. William was taken to a separate space to the normal students. Under one of the stands of the Quidditch stadium, there was a chair where William was thrown while Manuela painted his face with light blue and white colors. Soon the white-haired boy had his face painted with the flag of Argentina and half of his hair in light blue. That you have white hair saves us a lot of paint. It's lucky because I thought you couldn't paint my face. Do I have to do it myself? Asked William as the paints came into his hands out of nowhere. I don't see anyone else around here who can help me with this difficult task. Manuela smiled happily and closed her eyes waiting for the paint. Sigh. William sighed helplessly and started painting Manuela's face. He didn't have much to lose and he himself was interested in this whole selections thing. When they finished painting the faces and arranging everything, they both went up to the stands and it was just like Manuela said before, basically all the students had their faces painted. There were flags and balloons everywhere. The stands could be distinguished immediately, Argentina in light blue on the right side and Brazil in green with yellow on the left side. Manuela dragged the unsuspecting William again as if he were a child, who was already on his third day getting used to the treatment he was receiving. The wind was quite strong overhead but neither William nor Manuela seemed to mind as both of their attention fell on the Quidditch pitch where the teams were already entering, each player on their brooms. There's the Argentinian team, my cousin Daniel is one of the chasers, there he is, you can see him, he has brown hair. Manuela pointed directly to a young man. For William it was easy to spot him with his mind's eye. He's been in the chaser position for 2 years and is basically one of the best in Castle Bruxo. Manuela's tone was full of pride to the point that she puffed out her chest to prove it. I hope to meet him before I go back to Hogwarts. It will be a little complicated to introduce him. Daniel is always busy with training and goes from one place to another as if he was always on the time limit. I don't remember the last time we had a normal chat as family, but the truth is that I don't mind since I know he is always busy. Manuela arranged her hair behind her ear while she spoke. William could feel that Manuela's words were not false but they didn't represent the whole story either. Before the Argentina-Brazil game it was Manuela who screamed the loudest, a complete fan in William's eyes. It was football for him in his past life and the truth was that he had the feeling of nostalgia. Even he himself at some point shouted or got frustrated with some of the plays and celebrated one or another goal. If someone from Hogwarts saw William acting that way near Manuela then they wouldn't think it was William himself, they would even think it was a trap, but right now William didn't care about any of that and was just enjoying the experience. Chapter 44, Chapter 44, Peace Filter Development. Potions class, one of the classes William held most dear in his entire education. Even though many others dismissed potions it was mainly due to his short train of thought. At Hogwarts the classes were taught by Severus Snape and therefore had less popularity but many did not understand that professor was a genius in the art of potions. In Castle Bruxo the story was not very different and although it was not Snape who taught the classes, it was the teacher from Peru, Eliana Momini. The potions classes were strict because in the preparation of each potion there is a great risk for the wizard. As an exchange student William was positioned at the front of the classroom writing as much as he could with his right hand while listening and watching the witch's explanation. Add more cooked mandrake until the potion turns yellow, dictated the teacher near a tan-skinned student who was holding mandrake in his hands. Now don't stop stirring the potion until it is red. The classroom was mostly silent and only the words of the witch in charge could be heard, but there were barely audible whispers and of course, an explosion of a cauldron in the distance which ended up burning the robes of those involved. For the white-haired boy things were different, taking into account the teacher's instructions, the instructions in the books and the observations made to his classmates he was able to understand the potion up to 40%. 1. Add powdered opal until the potion turns green. 2. Stir until the potion turns blue. 3. Add more powdered opal until the potion turns purple. 4. Heat until the potion turns pink. 5. Add hellebore syrup until the potion turns turquoise. 6. Heat until the potion turns purple. 7. Vigorously shake the cooked mandrake and then add until the potion turns red. 8. Stir until the potion turns orange. 9. Add more cooked mandrake until the potion becomes yellow. 10. Stir until the potion turns green. 11. Add more cooked mandrake until the potion turns turquoise. 12. Heat until the potion turns purple. 13. Add powdered unicorn horn until the potion turns pink. 14. Stir until the potion turns red. 15. Heat until the potion turns purple. 16. Add more powdered opal until the potion turns pink. 17. Heat until the potion turns orange. 18. Add porcupine quills until the potion turns white. The instructions for making the potion are very detailed. The ingredients must be added in the exact order and amounts specified, and the potion must be stirred 7 times, both clockwise and counterclockwise. Before the final ingredient, hellebore, is added, the temperature of the flames must be reduced and the potion allowed to simmer for 7 minutes. I need a little more, something is missing. William closed his eyes and concentrated on the mind's eye to spread it around the classroom. He was now able to see all the cauldrons as well as every detail. One of the advantages of working with many people was the fact that he had several samples for learning. All students have different paces and different decisions, which becomes a large bowl of information to manage. The surrounding students had several mistakes: potions emitting dark silver vapor, green sparks, sulfurous smells, others ended up with a cement-like consistency, and several more exploded for different reasons. "Got it!" exclaimed William, opening his eyes with a start and taking in his hands 2 small cauldrons, the necessary ingredients in the instructions, and 5 Dictamis plants. The comprehension of the peace filter rose to 60%. The first cauldron had the potion instructed by Eliana. Opal was added and a mild incantation. William instructed to stir what was necessary for the potion to turn blue, then add the opal, and so on until the potion reached the pink color. While in the second cauldron a different story was happening. The mandrake was added to be cooked, but in addition powdered unicorn horn and whole Dictamis were added. "What is he doing?" asked a young wizard close to William, surprised at what the Hogwarts student was doing. "Maybe she learned it at Hogwarts," muttered a girl. The second cauldron now had opal inside it, while the potion in the first cauldron was added with hellebore syrup and porcupine quills at the same time. The potion turned a deep red color. "Now," muttered William, taking the second cauldron in his hands and pouring its contents into the first cauldron. The students standing near William were surprised by the white-haired man's sudden action. Even the witch in charge was surprised and ran to William's table. "What are you doing?" asked the teacher, but William didn't stop to answer her and continued with his preparation. His attention was focused on the potion and the messages in front of his eyes. Peace filter comprehension rose to 72%. It was the longest 2 minutes ever, but at the end the potion spread silver-colored steam indicating it was ready. "Ready," said William, dropping his body into the chair. His face was full of sweat and his breathing was agitated. "My peace filter is ready." "What was that?" asked the teacher. "An innovative method, Professor." William wanted to explain, but in some moments he felt short of breath. "But it's the peace filter you all know, only I used an alternate route. Now it only takes 20 minutes. 20 minutes, exclaimed the witch, surprised. "This is amazing." She looked at the potion fixedly. "Have you ever prepared a peace filter before?" William shook his head. "At Hogwarts this filter is taught in 5th year, besides you were very attentive in class. I need a little time to check that everything was correct. Someone take William to rest, the rest of you finish with your potion." Chapter 45, Duel Club, 1. After William was taken out of the classroom and subsequently taken to the infirmary, class ended abruptly, surprising all the students present, both in the unusual manufacture of the peace filter and in the reaction of the teacher, but no one dared to ask questions and simply left the classroom. Professor Eliana held the peace filter in her hands and walked out of the classroom, making sure to leave everything closed. "Is this the rumored peace filter that was manufactured in your class, Teacher Eliana?" The director Anna walked into her office, where she was already being waited by some of the teachers. In front of her on her desk was the small glass vial. She lifted the vial and looked at it carefully. "It is certainly a much more concentrated version than normal." "It is not only its concentration, headmistress, the method for making this potion is not the same as the ones described in the books." "A different formula that is taught at Hogwarts?" asked the headmistress. "The peace filter is taught to 5th year students. William, on the other hand, is only a 1st year student, and even if he looked up the information in the books he couldn't find a different method than the traditional ones." A dark-complexioned professor mentioned the information. "His family. I understand he comes from the Rosier family, a family of a long, famous, noble, and dark lineage. I recognize that they must possess a vast fortune in knowledge of all kinds, but not with this kind of information," a peace filter must not be relevant enough for them to hide it from the world without gaining profit from them. The same professor from before was the one who dictated the information without showing joy on his face. So does this mean that the boy can not only brew potions better than the seniors but also managed to make a new formula on his first try while in class? At the headmistress' question all the teachers present nodded slightly, delivered a few comments as Professor Eliana narrated the story. Headmaster Dumbledore would never send a normal Hogwarts student, that's for sure. Besides, this was an award he earned on his own merit for services to the school. The headmistress leaned on her hands. We can't turn a blind eye to the situation. If this boy is that capable, I want special classes assigned to him to attend, especially potions. We may find a new potion. No one else besides those present can know the information, especially Manuela. But isn't she his guardian? Asked Professor Eliana. It's exactly for that reason that she can't know. A possible potions genius and a girl with her special condition, she should know what will happen. The dark-complexioned professor interrupted. But there are no objections, Professor Eliana. Manuela is an excellent student. I don't want her reputation to be tarnished by fleeting hopes. She has made more effort than any other student in the past to get to this point. Do you understand? At the headmistress' words, Teacher Eliana simply nodded resignedly. There was nothing she could do, and she herself understood the headmistress' point. Outside the headmistress' office in the dining room, William was moving towards an empty table to eat when he was interrupted by an unfamiliar voice. You're the Hogwarts student. William turned to see the identity of the person. In front of him stood a young man with tan skin, large, deep-set, dark eyes, thin, elongated downward ears, dark but long hair. William was quick to recognize the person, Anna Myru, the captain of the dueling club. Yes, William replied in a neutral voice as he took a seat at the table preparing to devour his meal. Anna followed William and sat across from him. Is Hogwarts as special as the rumors say? The voice full of illusion from Anna made William raise his head to look at him. It depends on the type of rumors, but yes. If you mean that every year there is some kind of danger to the students, then you are correct. What? You didn't mean those kinds of rumors? No, of course not. I wanted to know about Hogwarts duelists. Ah, well, I think Professor Flitwick and Professor Severus are good duelists. Of course everyone knows there's also Headmaster Albus Dumbledore. I want to know about the students. There are supposed to be many students from old families, then they should inherit the knowledge, wisdom, and character of their families. I know it sounds a bit arrogant of me, but I am the strongest student in Castle Bruxo. Of course I can still improve. I have to finish receiving the knowledge of my clan. Hogwarts students also have a handle on dueling, but there is no one very mind-blowing. If I had to name someone, then it would be Cedric Diggory. He is a few years older than me. I'm Anna Myru. What's your name? William saw the boy's outstretched hand and couldn't help but smile. At Hogwarts this would never happen. Besides the girls he talks to, there is no one else he wants to associate with. But of course it's still too early to judge. I'm William Rosier. So it was true, the student who was able to stand up to Voldemort. Anna squeezed William's hand tightly. For the albino, on the other hand, it was a surprise that the boy could say Voldemort's name so calmly. Usually that doesn't happen. How? My father is also a powerful wizard. He can't leave the island, but he still collects information, and what happened at Hogwarts is not a secret at all. Some people think it's a lie and just a story to gain attention, but my father says it's possible, then I believe the same. Anna was a very different boy than what William had in his mind. This boy was too honest and didn't show any prejudice, even knowing his last name. William. I want to have a duel against you. Chapter 46, Chapter 46, Perhaps an acquaintance. A duel? Asked William, making Anna nod her head. The two of us. Anna nodded once again. I'm not interested. Come on, it will only be a duel. I want to test your true strength. I want to know the difference between our abilities. Anna insisted strongly, but William didn't seem to care what she said. William certainly wasn't interested in duels. He had barely made it into Castle Bruxo and he didn't want to get into trouble with duels. From his experience he knew that these things didn't end well. If you have a duel with me, then I will gift you with some knowledge of my island." The moment he said those words, William's attention was focused on the island student. "Are you sure?" Anana pulled out a scroll from between his clothes. "Maybe it's not something very special, but I'm sure you can make good use of it. It's the meanings of our islander drawings." Ugh! William swallowed hard, for the young albino having new knowledge was a gold mine. Thanks to his knowledge system he could understand when he was in the right direction for an investigation, but without information there is no investigation. "What say you, William, do you accept the duel?" asked Anana, extending her hand towards the hesitant William. "I accept." There was no room for doubt at this point. William was not sure of the reason for his reincarnation, he still had no idea of his ultimate goal, but if there was one thing for sure, he would become the best wizard of all, the most complete wizard throughout history. Anana stared at William and smiled. "Great, I really wanted to face you in a duel. You may be a freshman, but I assure you I won't be soft. I don't expect to be treated any other way. I'll send you all the details of the duel with one of my boys. Everything will be regulation, you have nothing to worry about." Anana got up from her seat and turned around. "See you at the duelo." "Ah, don't take your guardian, she and I are not on the best of terms." "Manuela." Exactly. Without adding any further comment they both parted and William simply stayed eating as if nothing had happened. It wasn't until after the second half of the school day was over that William and Manuela finally got together once again. "So how do you like the classes at Castle Bruxo?" "They are quite informative, not specifically the same as Hogwarts but not much different either. Of course I like the fact that potions is much more important here. At Hogwarts there is Professor Snape teaching the classes, and while his knowledge is superior to many, his personality is quite stern and quite critical. Many can't stand his classes." William remembered the least liked professor within Hogwarts. "Seems like a rather curious class." The expression on Manuela's face held a hint of surprise. "Did you make any friends during your time as an exchange student?" William scratched his head slightly. His time at Hogwarts had affected his ability to relate to people and somehow he became kind of antisocial. It didn't bother him, but it was worrisome if he thought about the future. "Did I make a friend or well an acquaintance?" "One?" asked Manuela, interested. "From your class?" "Not really, but I think we might get along pretty well." "I guess that's pretty good. I'd like to get to know him if it's possible." "I'll look for the opportunity for them to meet, or maybe not." William sighed. If what Anana had said was true, then it was best that they didn't meet. "By the way, next week I will be away and you will probably be assigned another guardian, but with your mind you probably won't need a guardian. Anyway, you should stay out of trouble as much as possible and not go far from the castle. The jungle is not safe." Manuela pointed directly at William between her eyebrows. "When I say it's not safe, I'm not being sarcastic. The Amazon jungle is not safe for anyone, that includes the jungle dwellers, understood?" "Sure, no problem. I guess everything is fine." Manuela stood up. "Here we must separate, you must go to your dormitories and tomorrow start classes once again." They both said goodbye to move towards the place that corresponded. When they arrived at their dormitory, William checked Pruna's condition. As time went by, the Griffin's senses were more acute and she could feel almost immediately when William entered the bag. For the moment space was not a problem, but in the future it would be impossible to keep her locked up. Griffins tend to fly a lot and the bag didn't have the ideal capacity for that. William had some ideas in his mind to solve the problem, but nothing he could do at that moment. He spent a long time petting Pruna and organizing her feathers, but more than that, Pruna was eating everything that William brought her. But in William's mind there were many other things that made him worry. Having all the original plot in his mind was not one of the best situations, even if this could save his skin in the future. Now that he was in Castle Bruxo, he had to find a way to counteract what would happen in the Chamber of Secrets, learn about Mandrix, and of course, he still had the duel with Anana. Chapter 47, High-level classes. Will I be taking classes with the third-year students? Before William could take his classes as planned, Teacher Eliana stopped his progress. "These are the principal's decisions." The peace filter you elaborated left her pleasantly surprised, and she wanted to try one more method by advancing in your study. She believes you can learn a little faster than your peers. William looked at Professor Eliana directly. he didn't find much logic to what she was saying. If they wanted to advance at first they would try the second year, but they skipped even the third year classes. William's intuition told him that this wasn't what the professors really wanted, but the headmistress's orders were practically absolute, just like Dumbledore at Hogwarts. I suppose I'll have to trouble the teacher to lead the way, of course, if this isn't a bother. A bother? Asked the professor, and then quickly denied, of course it's not a bother, we're just carrying out orders. William followed the teacher's path in silence. Manuela had shown him the school, but there were places that were not necessary, as in this case the third-year students sector. My younger sister is part of the third-year students. I will make sure she helps you to orient you with the classes. I guess it's for the best. I wish I could have counted on Manuela's advice, but she mentioned that she would not be available during the week. I hope it won't be an inconvenience for your sister, teacher. Don't worry. She will understand immediately and will help you as much as possible. Finally they both arrived at the destination. Eliana knocked the door twice with her wand, making it open and revealing the large amount of students in their individual desks. In front of all the students was a professor with a countenance worthy of a nobleman. Professor Gary, I bring with me the student that was spoken of at the meeting. The teacher moved to the side and revealed little William. I hope there is nothing to explain. You have nothing to worry about, Professor. Everything was agreed upon during the meeting. Gary signaled William to enter the classroom. As of this moment we have a new student in our class, a transfer student from Scotland, specifically from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. From the looks of him you may think he is too young to be in third-year classes, but believe me, his talent in potions is superior to many in this classroom. If you don't watch your studies, then this boy will take your places. With you, William Rosier. All the students in the classroom were looking at William. Seeing a child in the classroom was not something that happened every day. Of course the ages really don't differ much, and if William's actual age were to be counted, then in this classroom all the students are children in front of the albino. Gary looked carefully at his classroom, looking for the appropriate location for William to take a seat, but it was at that moment that a hand reached upwards. William, here is a free seat. The male voice came from the back of the classroom, where William could immediately recognize the identity of the person calling him. It was none other but Anana Myru. Do you know the student Anana? Asked Gary, intrigued. I guess we can call each other acquaintances, replied William calmly. I guess there is no problem for me to sit there, right, Professor? No, no problem at all. You can use that booth with the teacher's affirmative. William headed towards the booth pointed out by Anana. As he walked he could notice the gaze of the surrounding students. William was used to the stares, but these did not have negative intentions as at Hogwarts. The students who looked at William did it with curiosity. When he arrived at the desired place there was not only Anana but also other students belonging to the dueling club. William could recognize them by the emblem on their locker rooms. No one but the members of the dueling club had the emblem of two crossed wands on their uniform. Manuela had pointed it out during the tour around the school. I see you skipped a few grades, William. Anana greeted as William took a seat. I guess if they moved you all the way up here it means you have the ability of a third-year student. Our duel will be magnificent. Do you already have the place for our duel? Asked William. The place was destined from the first moment. We just needed to agree on the right time, but I think we have other matters to attend to first. Anana spread a sheet of paper on William's table. I wanted to talk this over with you during the lunch break, but the fact that you are here allows me to be more direct. You came at the best time, William Rosier. We, the dueling club, are going on an expedition to a temple that no one has any records of. A temple? Asked William. Exactly, a temple from ancient times, before the conquest, when shamans still existed in this place. We may be able to find some special items before the goblins of Gringotts are tipped off and send in their grave robbers. Why me? Does there have to be a reason? Asked Anana, looking at the white-haired man. If you want a reason, I guess it's because you look interesting and I also want to show you the ultimate expression of Castle Bruxo. Chapter 48, Chapter 48, Different. Fine. You win, I'll go with you to your adventure. The truth is I'm also curious about the ancient temples. After all, I came all the way to Castle Bruxo to learn and know more things than the wizards of Europe. Seeing that William accepted the invitation, the whole group was happy. Did you hear that? Asked Anana, looking at her companions. We will have a potions master in the team. How do you know? What thing? The fact that you are a potions teacher. Anina asked, looking at the albino. I have acquaintances in every class. Your performance in the Peace Filter class was excellent, and it's no coincidence that you are sent to third year a couple of days later. Don't look at me like that, I look stupid. William could only shake his head as he sighed. Things in Castle Bruxo were quite different from Hogwarts. Here there were no houses, which created the rivalries between students, and so groups were created. In William's mind, the first thing that came to his mind were the mafias. Anina was like the head of a mafia. Manuela's reactions at the mention of it confirmed it. How many useful potions can you create for an adventure that might bring dangers? Anina stared at the young man. We have several potions students in the group, but the more the better. I suppose you can make the Wiggenweld potion. It's not many potions I can make, but quality is the sweet spot. Perfect, smiled Anina. We've been talking for quite a while now, but the professor doesn't seem to have noticed. Is it some kind of ability, or does he just decide not to interfere? Anina looked at William and laughed. I would like Professor Gary to help us with our expeditions and discoveries, but unfortunately professors hardly ever get involved with students. Things are very different from Hogwarts. Anina's expression seemed rather grim. It caught William's attention, but he decided not to ask. He didn't want to interfere in someone else's business, at least not for now, but that's beside the point. Professor Gary doesn't say anything because he can't see anything. We are students, but America is a place with a lot of variety of traditions. Magicians never finish learning in this place. Even Professor Gary, who is a professional magician, has not finished his apprenticeship, and for our fortune the boy who is behind me is a magician from Rio Plata, descendant of high-level witches specialized in illusionism magic. He is our special agent. Professor Gary can only see the image of us studying diligently. William was surprised. It was the first time he had heard of such magic. He had seen the original story several times, but this was never mentioned. Hogwarts was truly a pit, and he was the frog. Looking at the student behind Anina's back, he could notice several things. The young man's skin was redder than the students at Hogwarts. His features were harder and his nose thicker. The young man's eyebrows were dark and looked like two brushes over black eyes. The student's hair was simple but at the same time peculiar. He wore a hand-woven ribbon with several red emblems tying his dark hair back. From Anina's words, William knew that the name of this student of rare magic was called Nihyun. As for his last name, this one only said that no one knew it. Class is almost over. I will send the class notes to your dorm as soon as possible to keep you up to date. Remember to make lots of potions. I will send the ingredients along with the notes. Anina got up as soon as the class was over. I have a lot of business to attend to. Later we can coordinate everything with more details. Before William could leave class, he was approached by Professor Eliana's sister. The tour around the place was not the same as the one with Manuela. The young student was not at all like Manuela. She always, when she was saying something, she got tangled in her words or simply distracted when other students greeted her, but William had no problems. The truth was getting used to the environment of Castle Bruxo, a place where his last name did not cause a negative impression, where he did not have to carry the last name Rosier. Are you listening to me? Asked the girl when she saw that William was looking in another direction. Sure. It's just that there are times when I'm a little absent-minded, admitted William, placing his attention on the young girl, who only sighed. This should be your guardian's job. It was obvious that she couldn't fulfill it. Every month she is absent for a while. The young woman touched her forehead with annoyance. William paid attention to all the girl's words. The fact that Manuela disappeared every month was quite strange. Teacher Eliana didn't know the reason. The young girl present neither, but Anina might know the reason. On the other hand, it wasn't good for William to interfere in other people's business either. The fact that he interfered with Voldemort was to earn his pass this far, but there wouldn't be a second time. If you were at least a more mature boy, we could have gone out to other places, but you're just a boy. Anyway, follow me, there's not much left for the tour to finish. William followed the young woman closely as she mentioned some third-year details. While Manuela was a serious informant, this young woman on the other hand was one who informed through gossip. Chapter 49, Chapter 49, Cat's Eyes Enchantment. First of all, it is my duty to apologize for my absence. The truth is that I was writing original stories to sell on Amazon, but now I'm back. I have already written up to chapter 53, so we can move forward with daily publications as before. William woke up early in the morning. Barely 4 hours had passed since the moment he closed his eyes, but the truth for him did not represent any kind of challenge. On the other hand, in his room there were several bottles with different liquids scattered everywhere. During the night William had been processing potions for the dueling club on behalf of the expedition. He left his assigned room calmly. His new guardian was not around, which meant he would have complete freedom until at least when Manuel returned. Regarding Hogwarts life, in Castle Bruxo things were quite different. For example, to get from the dormitories to the halls required much more time. It was necessary to go down the pyramid of the dormitories and reach the pyramid where the assigned hall was. For William this time there were incantations classes. Like many other times he was excited for his class as it would feature an incantation he had not seen before. "Is everyone there yet?" In front of all the students stood one of the sternest teachers of all within Castle Bruxo. William knew this professor as David Torres, and he belonged to the land of Chile in the deepest corner of the world. He came from a family dedicated to hunting dangerous beasts. The appearance of this professor was more chilling than others in the past. He had a white eye and both his face and arms were covered with scars of different sizes. When William asked Anina about this professor, he was told that he had fought a beast called Traco, which is known as a short ogre capable of breaking a man's bones just by looking at him. "Today you will all begin practicing the cat's eyes enchantment. This is one of the most useful enchantments in my area of work. It allows the mage to see in the dark without the need for light, meaning you don't have to transform yourself into an easy target using lumos. Pay attention to my movements. If you make a mistake, then consider yourself blind for a week. Do you understand?" David made the movements with his wand several times. He watched as all the students performed the move. He even pointed it out on the board behind his back so everyone could get a concrete idea. Even though his appearance intimidated anyone, William could see his dedication to teaching. He noticed every flaw in the students and corrected them more than once if it became necessary. In William's previous life this was quite unusual. "Well, I can notice that you all have the wand movement mastered almost completely. It's time for us to move on to the next level. Time to do magic properly. Everyone recite the previously practiced incantation and perform the incantation on your eyes. In 20 seconds I will turn off the lights and we will continue with the theory class for the exam in silence. Everything I will explain after the darkness fills this room, will be in the exam." The expression of the students present changed immediately. They only had one chance to activate the incantation properly, otherwise they would not be able to get what they needed for the exam. William felt sympathy for the older students and for those who would soon be entering classes with David. For William himself this was nothing more than child's play. Learning an incantation was his goal to present to the class, but with his support system everything was much simpler. He had a visual guide to activate the incantation by wand movement and his understanding had already reached 50%. "Cat oculos," murmured William while with his wand he made an oval and moved the wand upwards. The incantation was activated immediately and his eyes began to glow slightly, changing the color of his pupils to adapt to the darkness that Professor David had caused in the classroom at that precise moment. William glanced down at his hands. He could see them almost clearly, although his range of vision was now much reduced compared to normal and it almost looked like he was looking through a bottle. "Amazing," William muttered, looking all around. He then made eye contact with Professor David. "Perfect," said David loudly. "The first-year student transferring from Hogwarts is a genius, just as the rumors mention. He was able to activate this charm on his first try, even before my students. That just tells us that the other side is still better than us. Don't you think that's pitiful?" David's words contained no malice whatsoever that could be felt by William himself. They were only used to motivate the rest of the students, but still this could mean a rivalry with the Castle Bruxo students. After all, no one liked the feeling of losing to a foreigner. David patted William's shoulder reassuringly. "You don't have to worry, Rosier boy, they won't harm you. After all, none of them can see you. Each and every one of them has a muggle's ability for magic." "Doesn't that mean they don't have abilities?" asked William. "Exactly," smiled David. "You said it yourself, William, they have no ability to be wizards." It was at that moment that William watched as one by one, the student's eyes began to glow slightly, representing that the enchantment was working accordingly. Apparently they still have a bit of integrity. Well, I guess we should get started on the exam topics before class is over. William looked at David's back. He still had a lot to learn from this school, this was proof of that. The cat's eyes charm one he had not heard of before and one that was really useful, considering what was coming in the future. This charm would be one of his lifelines. Chapter 50, Learning. Hello everyone, here again for the second day in a row, here is another chapter. For those who want to know about the name of my original work, you can look it up on Amazon as I Am Not a Fantasy Hero. It's already available in both physical and digital. Greetings to all. What did you say? I want to learn magic from all of you. You possess different types of magic and can do things that Hogwarts wizards are incapable of accomplishing. William stood in front of the dueling club. All the members were gathered as they formed plans for the excursion to the newly discovered pyramid. After the meeting, William made that request, surprising everyone. Anna rubbed her neck uncomfortably. This is a somewhat complicated matter. It's not that we don't wish to teach you, it's just that the teaching of our skills is somewhat complicated and sometimes things are forbidden for outsiders. I understand, but I'm not asking you to teach me advanced spells or enchantments, just something that is special. I came all the way to Castle Bruxo to learn and you seem to be the ones. The members of the dueling club looked at each other. Many of them were reluctant to teach others their secrets, but the last few days William was almost one of them. They all ate at the same table, attended meetings, and talked in classes. What does Nawin say? Are you willing to teach our young companion? Anna looked at her Silver River companion fixedly. Nawin, who almost never spoke and was one of the most respected members of the club of all, sketched a slight smile on his face only to then nod his head. You know as well as I do that Will is a very proud person. If he was able to ask us this, leaving his pride aside, it only means that he is sincere with his words. To a person like that I am unable to refuse. I, Nawin from Rio de Plata, will teach you the secrets of the magic of the moonlight. I hope you can take advantage of my teachings while you are in Castle Bruxo. Seeing Nawin offer his teachings to William made everyone slightly change their perspective on things. I can teach you how to travel on the broom standing upright without losing your balance. One of the younger members of the club stepped forward. I have a trick to make mandrakes not scream while being transplanted. I can teach you how to read the stars. I think I have the formula for a potion to heal people's eyesight. I will teach you how to raise a barrier with the symbols of my island. Not many mages will have the ability to break the barrier, Anna mentioned with her arms crossed, looking at William fixedly. You already asked for the help, now you have to learn everything we will teach you. You have 30 days from this moment to learn everything. You will be much more reliable in the expedition if you learn everything. Sure, just tell me who I start with. Seeing William's confident smile, there was no one in the club that didn't feel energized. Maybe he was a Hogwarts student, but for the dueling club he was already one of them. After that meeting, every day without fail William met with a member of the dueling club to practice different things. Learning the characteristics was one of the first things that William began to study. Edgar, a student from Venezuela, taught him things that did not appear in the books. He had a parchment with a drawing of a mandragora and each part of this plant. It took William 2 afternoons to understand everything about the mandragora. During the nights, Nawin taught him how to obtain energy from the moon, recharge his strength without the need to sleep, heal wounds, fatigue and mind. Perhaps it was a passive ability unlike anything taught at Hogwarts, but this would save his life in prolonged battles. The first step was to meditate under the moonlight. In Nawin's own words, his mother could obtain the energy even if she was in motion, but William could consider it a success if he obtained it in a state of rest. On other nights it is Claudia who teaches William how to read the stars to predict future events. She mentions that her family has been dedicated to reading the stars for a long time, even before the first settlers appeared. The ability to create barriers was one of the most complicated. William had to dedicate much of his time to learning this art: symbols, strokes, measurements, calculating distance and ranges. Every single thing within the formation of such a barrier was complex, and Anna was not one of the best students trained for teaching. Each of her explanations were illogical. It was a freckled girl from Colombia who was dedicated to teaching William the broom trick. Standing balance could be useful in desperate times or even help in playing Quidditch. Standing on the broom was for William a similar sensation to using a skateboard. Far away in the tallest pyramid of all those present at Castle Bruxo, Headmistress Anne looked out of the window at her students' training. He was able to convince them all, she said seriously. So he is learning from your students. Another person in the office was sitting comfortably on a sofa. Yes, replied Anna, looking at Rita, the Minister of Magic in the region. Even some students who used to stay away are now helping the young man. Before, I couldn't have even imagined the possibility that a member of those families corrupted by the fame of pure-blood families would now be in my school communicating with any kind of student without distinction. Life tends to be complicated, even for those who rejoice over the possibility of seeing the future. Chapter 51, Chapter 51, A Date Between Friends. Knock. Knock. The sound of the door woke William from his sleep before his usual scheduled start time for classes. Learning with the dueling club members had mentally exhausted him. Knock, knock. I'm coming, I'm coming. No need to knock on the door so many times, William complained loudly, rubbing his right hand on his face to finish opening his eyes. Then when he opened the door, the figure of a person he hadn't seen for days appeared. Manuela. Who else could it be? They both stared at each other for a few seconds, waiting for the other to say something, but nothing came out of their mouths. What are you doing here? William was the first to break the silence and opened his mouth. Manuela was still smiling. She looked around, but there were no students standing. We're going to gather materials at the magical creature farm. At 6 in the morning. This is the ideal time to go get the materials. You should be thankful. A beauty like me came to invite you. Think of this as a wizard date. No thanks, I want to continue on a date with my bed. I don't have classes today. William closed his door and walked back to his bed when... Knock. 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 Ack. William hit his head against a wall, then simply sighed. I'm horrible with human relationships. The door to his room opened once more, revealing Manuela again. I'm going to shower before I leave, then we can go pick up materials. She nodded her head and watched again as William closed the door. She waited patiently until the moment when the white-haired man came back out of his room with his uniform on his body. Let's go, he said, stepping forward. Then Manuela just pulled him by the arm and they both ran through the school. Together they looked like a pair of siblings. When they got to the magical creature farm, all was quiet. Let's get started, she said, stepping forward. William helplessly began to gather all the possible materials for his formulas. There was not much talk between the two. William hesitated a bit about asking the reason for her disappearance, but in the end he gave up the idea. Everyone had their own secrets, and if she decided not to tell, then he was not the right person to get honest answers. Once they had gathered all they could, they were both exhausted and stared at each other for a couple of seconds when Manuela's stomach gave the signal to forage for food. I think the next stop on our date is the dining room, laughed William, eliciting a smirk from Manuela. Both of their steps were quick. To Manuela all the surroundings were just as she remembered them. Nothing had changed except that now many students were greeting William along the way. You've become quite popular, Will. What did you do during my absence? Nothing out of the ordinary. I followed the classes to the letter and maybe started practicing with the members of the dueling club. The dueling club? With Anna and her friends? Yes, they're all teaching me a bit of their skills. They're really good people. Manuela stared at William for a couple of seconds. Her expression was serious, causing the white-haired man's discomfort. William, she called. Yes. Do you remember what it was I told you the first time you walked into the dining room? William stroked her chin softly. Something about staying away from the dueling club. Exactly, she exclaimed contentedly. The members of the dueling club are always getting into trouble. Each and every one of them are considered the most troublesome students in Castle Bruxo. Anna, as their captain, is one of the most troublesome of them all, and I would really like you to stay away from them. But I didn't approach them. It was Anna who approached me to challenge me to a duel. Exactly, it was me who approached him first, you don't have to growl at William. William felt an arm behind the back of his neck and placed over his shoulders. As he turned his head he could see Anna smiling as she looked at Manuela. We just want to give him the best of all the experiences that Castle Bruxo can offer, besides William is a child, we just want to instruct him. When Anna said that, the members of the dueling club present nodded their heads. You don't have to get angry, Manuela, we promise to do our best so that William is not exposed to any kind of trouble, just let us continue teaching him our tricks. Manuela just stared at Anna. She had her arms crossed and was quite upset. William understood that Manuela's concern for his well-being was quite sincere, but he also knew that something else had happened between Anna and her. When William returns to Hogwarts, everyone will know that our school is the best of them all, said Anna in her quest to get Manuela's permission to keep William with them. She finally sighed, full of helplessness. Fine, you guys win, I just ask that you don't get William in trouble. Everyone started to celebrate when she said that. And I will be close to your group. I don't want you to teach William strange things like making invisible walls so that people collide out of nowhere. William started to walk away from Manuela along with the members of the dueling club to a table reserved for them. Behind stayed Manuela and Anna, both looking at William. I understand that you talked him into a duel, but how is it possible that you all became friends so quickly? It's the nature of men, I guess, but the fact that he was sent to the third-year classes just accelerated things. Did you know that he was able to create and improve a peace filter on his first try? Just so you know, William is a true genius, I can feel it. Anna started walking, leaving Manuela standing behind staring at her classmates and William himself. Chapter 52, Expedition, 1. Time passed and the predestined moment had arrived. It was during the 12th day of the month of August when the dueling club had all the preparations ready for the expedition. Nawin approached Anna near one of the hidden exits of the Castle Bruxo's space. Perfect. Anna stood up from his seat to look at the members selected for this expedition, 13 members, among them William, Nawin, and Anna himself. The moment we set foot in this passageway there will be no turning back. The moment we return to the classroom we have to do so with treasures that no one, not even the goblins of Gringotts, would have seen before in their wrinkled lives. In Castle Bruxo there were several statues scattered everywhere that told the history of the school, but there was one in specific that was different from all the others. In that statue there was a warrior with a shield. When you touched a small plate on the bottom of the shield you could activate a secret mechanism that opened a secret exit to the jungle. All of you carry the bags given by Nawin. Inside you will find everything you need to return alive. If there are no objections to this trip, then follow me. Anna turned around and started to descend the stairs to the secret exit. William followed closely behind Anna. In truth he had wanted to invite Manuela to the expedition, but if she found out then it would likely be cancelled by the director herself. Besides, it would be impossible to tell her. After all, William hadn't seen her for a few days. You don't need to worry about her, William. Since I first met her I knew she was quite strange, pointed out Anna calmly. I suggest you commit your full attention to our expedition. The Amazon jungle is much more dangerous than you might think. There are many strange beasts within it. Do you have a map? Asked William. Of course I have a map. Besides, we have a native of the jungle who will support us in our crusade. He knows the shortest way to get to the destination. The dueling club walked in the dark. William for his part used the spell Cat's Eyes to be able to see in the dark. Among the members of the dueling club there were those who specialized in sensory-type magic to search for beasts in the surroundings. These specific mages could not follow the march of the group and were simply carried by the other members. I doubt this expedition will last one night. How can they possibly not find us? William asked. Anna just pointed at Nawin. We already have everything planned. Nawin's older brother and his friends will be in charge of covering our tracks. Illusory magic, remember? William nodded. Everything was planned, every possible detail. It was impossible not to admire this student who did not belong to the canon of history. From what William had studied about the culture of the island of Rapa Nui, Anna's father, the Ariki of the island, is a high-level wizard with powers capable of taking Dumbledore himself back to his golden age. But like any great power it has great limitations. The Ariki was not allowed to leave the island, and this was not a verbal rule but a curse. Anana had pointed out earlier that in the future he would be the Ariki of the island, and so he seeks to explore and enjoy his school life as much as he can. Well, I think we are far enough away to be discovered by the headmistress. She has control of the jungle, but it's only superficial. It will be hard even for her to find us. Get the equipment ready, we will camp here and during the morning we will continue. They all followed Anana's orders and began to create their shelters without the use of magic to decrease the chances of being discovered. William set up a small tent with his own hands. Before starting to rest, he used his mind's eye to check his surroundings. Using the mind's eye was already an everyday thing. After all, he lived with this strange power all the time after his reincarnation, and during his first year at Hogwarts it became what can be called indispensable. Excrement, he asked himself when he noticed that his shoe was covered with that brown paste. It's fresh, oh no. There was no doubt in William's mind. He had to warn Anana of the discovery before it was too late. Any of the beasts in the jungle were a risk to student mages like them. What kind of beast do you think it is? Asked Anana, looking at the white-haired man. All the important members of the dueling club were gathered at the spot where William had found the excrement, plus there were traces of hair and the like. Before selecting Castle Bruxo as my first destination in this little exchange trip, I studied all the possible magical fauna. I didn't want to miss any detail, and thanks to that research I can be sure that this excrement belongs to a broad-horned gorilla. These guys are territorial. Right now we must be at one of the ends of their territory. I recommend getting away as soon as possible to avoid any unnecessary confrontation. Anana looked at Nawin, who was at his back. Warn everyone, we're leaving in 3 minutes, just tell them that apparently they're tracking us. I don't want any of these idiots fighting the beast just to get some recognition. All members of the expedition leave the site to make camp quietly. They avoided danger just barely but still kept their lives. Chapter 53, Expedition, 2. The members of the morning club had been walking for more than 6 hours when they finally stopped at the edge of a ravine in the middle of the jungle. It's closed now, declared Anana, looking off into the distance from the edge of the ravine. Is it hidden with a protective spell? Asked William, looking in the same direction as Anana but not visualizing anything. He then activated his mind's eye to look around. He quickly detected something that shouldn't have been there. It's underground. As expected of you, William, you were able to deduce it immediately. Anana extended the map of the forest so they could both see it. Looking for these ruins is impossible from the sky, as many wizards do. Walking through the jungle doesn't ensure you find it either, as there is only one door and it is under a tree. Very well, we must go on. I want to get to the entrance before noon. Usually ruins of this type have many traps, and the night will only bring us more problems in the jungle. Nawin understood the signal of his captain and made the warning immediately for everyone to follow the march. They only had to avoid some magical beasts and move through alternative paths until they reached the entrance of the ruins without any damage. The entrance to the ruin had nothing special. Anyone looking at it would think it was a bear cave or something similar, but the secret to the entrance of this ruin was in one of the walls of the cave. It had a mechanism similar to the 9 3/4 station. You only needed to pass through the cave to get to the real entrance of the ruin. Wow! Passing through the wall, they all stared at what was in front of them. Just like in Castle Bruxo, in front of them there was a pyramid with the same characteristics. Even the height was comparable to the main pyramid. Its color was more opaque, but it was also made of pure gold. The entrance was adorned with strange figures made of gold. Be careful, they may be gargoyles or some kind of puppet of antiquity. Just step in the same places as me. They all began to move very carefully, following Anana, who was straining to know the location of possible traps. You don't need to do that, said William, drawing everyone's attention, especially Anana's. Why? There are no traps in this sector. I can see some plates on the ground that will break from the weight of their bodies, but nothing else. William said calmly as he walked to the front with his arms behind his head. I have an ability that allows me to detect traps. An ability? Muttered Anana, then looked at William. You could have said it before. You made me look like an idiot. From now on be in charge of trap detection. Right. I'm not asking about my ability. He really has the character of a leader in his mind. William reinforced his assessment of Anana. The whole group continued to walk through the entrance without a problem. In truth, there was nothing to fear until they were at the actual entrance to the pyramid, a large golden door. Do not take a single step inside, this time it is protected by a strong invisible curse. From the formation I can guess that it is a fast-acting poison, warned William. How is it possible that the curse is still working? This pyramid is at least 1,000 years old, one of the members of the dueling club mentioned doubtfully about William's judgment. Usually these spells are self-sufficient. In Rapa Nui there are many of these self-defensive spells, they just get energy from the environment and keep working continuously, explained Anina patiently to reassure her fellow club members. What are we going to do to get in? Nawin looked at the entrance. It doesn't look like an easy protective curse to break. I guess we will have to look for another way to get in. We will split into pairs to look for another entrance. Remember not to enter directly. First we must make sure there are no similar traps. We don't want deaths in vain, Anina ordered everyone. Then she looked at Nawin and William. You two try to break the curse. Anina withdrew, leaving the duo behind in front of the main door. Nawin continued with his own investigation, getting as close to the curse as possible. On the other hand, William activated the mind's eye to investigate the curse. William's field of vision extended all around. I cannot see inside the pyramid. It has a protective spell capable of interfering with my field of vision. In Hogwarts there are also similar areas. Not knowing anything about the curse, it would be impossible to create a countermeasure. This was one of the flaws that William himself had noticed about himself. He still had nothing to break the special curses. Of course he was still in first year and had time, but he should also keep in mind that his trips to other schools would have certain challenges if he wanted to explore more than a normal student. William began to walk away from Nawin to have the opportunity for his mind's eye to explore other areas of the pyramid. Each of the areas of the pyramid was several hundred meters long and the mind's eye was unable to analyze it completely, much less analyze the top of the pyramid, but his field of vision was sufficient for the task because when he was in one of the corners of the edge of the pyramid, the mind's eye was able to find what looked like a solution. When they got to the end of the mind's eye field of vision, about 10 meters away there was a hole which did not hold between the protective curse field. It was not a big hole, but it was enough for them to enter one by one into the pyramid. Chapter 54, Chapter 54, Expedition, 3. Is that the entrance you could find? Asked Nawin, looking at the space that William pointed to. Both had climbed up to see the hole. The protective curse is not present here, of that there is no doubt. Now it only remains to warn the rest so we can follow the path. Soon they were all gathered once again and began to go through the hole, helping each other. Once inside, everyone could see the strange corridor they were in. Everything was full of dust, debris, and spider webs. All right, now we are inside. We passed the first test of this expedition and we can move on to the treasures that no one else has found in the past. Everything inside the pyramid was dark, but for the wizards of Castle Bruxo this was not a problem. The cat's eyes enchantment solved this inconvenience. They went through the entire corridor of the second floor without finding any kind of life, so there were not many dangers. William used his mind's eye to know the locations of the traps, but on the second floor there were hardly any traps. Not only were they not wizard traps, but they were meant to murder muggles if they managed to get in. As expected from ancient civilizations, they did not contemplate wizards almost at all. After all, in Latin America a wizard was a symbol of power and nobility, Anina explained as she triggered a trap where a large rock fell from the ceiling. No danger for experienced wizards, even for students like us this is nothing. This time we will split into groups of 3 to explore the second floor. Keep a distance of 20 meters from each other. We don't want there to be any losses, and if you encounter problems then send a signal. You can explore. When the instructions were handed out, everyone began to separate into groups and began to search the surrounding area for anything of value to call this expedition successful. As William walked, he kept his mind's eye always active to know what was in the surroundings. On the second floor there was nothing special until the moment he entered a room like any other. He had deactivated the mind's eye to see things with his own eyes again. Then as he looked at a wall beside him, he could see in detail something he had seen only in his past life while surfing the internet. The Dresden Codex, he muttered under his breath, touching the figures on the wall, but it's impossible. The codex should be on display in the Saxon State Library of the State of Dresden. Even if it wasn't that way, then at least it should have been sent to Vienna. Why is it here too? William looked at the drawings closely. In his memories it should be much more deteriorated, but the images were in impeccable condition. Clothes of the deities, the sacrifice of Junajah, the invocation of the deities and the preparation of the prophecies, all these things were supposed to be fake, but the magic in my ancient world was also fake. William shook his head to push those strange thoughts away. He didn't need to think about complicated things right now. Let's keep reading. I don't think I can carry the whole wall with me. Venus chart, solar eclipse chart, it's just as I remember it, even more detailed than before as it has no imperfections. I really wish I could take it to CA. What is this? William had walked almost all the way down the hallway reading what was on the wall. This wasn't on the internet. On the drawn wall was a moon at the top. There were several humans kneeling at the bottom. The geoglyphs were almost impossible to read for a person like William. It was true, and he had no support from his past memories to guide him. Instead, the drawings could support him. The drawing that William was looking at had even more secrets, since in the center there was a strange white mask as if it was made of wood. William kept looking at the strange page of the codex that was not in the version he remembered, but there was no how to understand. Then he went back a couple of steps and noticed it. Everything contained in the tablet was inside small lines that drew the pyramid he was in. If what I think is correct, then the mask must be an important possession, and I hope it is still inside the pyramid. I just hope we can find it. He turned around and left the room. He had to gather the members of the dueling club to discuss the possibility of the treasure. Then when he activated his mind's eye again, he noticed that the life signatures inside the pyramid were different. Shit, we were followed. Followed Anana's life signature and rushed over to warn. All the club members were immediately assembled. Apparently we were followed during our trip. Someone could have betrayed us or betrayed us. The truth is that we do not know the identity of our pursuers and their intentions. It is best to return to Castlabruxo. We cannot take risks even if we really want the treasures. Even so, we will not be able to return. William pointed out. From among all the members, they have the entrance guarded from the intruders. That's news, a bit unfortunate. Anana looked at Nawin, who only raised his shoulders. We will have to find a way out of this place. Even so, we are members of the dueling club. There are not many students inside Castlabruxo that are more prepared than us to defend ourselves from the dark arts, and apparently it's time to prove it. I just hope the cloaks of our uniforms are not just for decoration. Let's kick the asses of all those who oppose us. Let's show the capabilities of Castlabruxo's students. Let's go all out. Chapter 55, Chapter 55, Expedition, 4. Fire, a yellow line shot from one side to the other. Procho, a man's deep voice invoked the protective incantation that reduced the fire enchantment to nothing. Apuno, the rocks on the ground rose up and shot towards a student of the dueling club who had no choice but to jump to the side to avoid the blows, while another of the students exclaimed loudly as he pointed his wand at a wizard dressed in black. Desmaius, the red light rose up, impacting one of the enemy wizards who were bewildered and out of place. Then to everyone's surprise, Anana stood up without the wand in her hand and gave a loud clap. Huriperi, a loud sound wave echoed, lifting the wind from the ground in a swirling fashion and sending everyone backwards. I want to learn that, William said as he saw the wandless spell attack all the opponents. Sure will, once we get out of here I'll teach it to you, you'll surprise everyone at Hogwarts. They both laughed. This is not the time to make plans. If we don't all get out of here alive, then the headmistress will murder us, I have no doubt of that. Moments before, all involved were creating plans to avoid direct confrontation with the enemies, but it only took one move for both sides to meet. They tried to reach a dialogue, but the greed of human beings is not only present in Muggles as many believe. There was no certainty about the existence of a treasure, but an undiscovered ruin in itself meant a treasure. Dueling club retreat, exclaimed Nawin, making everyone start to leave the place at the same time they were returning spells. Once they retreated and closed the doors to the room, they were able to rest their wands for a moment. During the next confrontation we will use the Spartan formation. Everyone will use Projo to create small shields capable of blocking powerful spells, and we will keep the advantage. Then we will crush them using Anana's Cyclone and William's Flipendus. William, can you see on the other side of the door? They are waiting for us to return to fight, and others seem to have retreated in search of the treasure. Perfect, we will continue down the pyramid. We are already fighting these treasure hunters. Best to get out of this place with profit. With Anana's orders, they all moved as one group, covering the rear in case of attacks. Anana's reasoning was in fact impeccable. Just by noticing William's actions he knew the nature of his ability, and while that surprised William, it didn't bother him. Instead it transformed into a feeling of tranquility. Now he could use his mind's eye without excuses. They ran down the corridor, avoiding any obstacle that William indicated. By the time they reached the lowest floor in the pyramid's basement, they found a room full of strange items. "Are these Muggle weapons?" asked one of the members, taking in his hands a spear with strange markings. "There is plenty of gold. With this we will have no problem paying our tuition." The members of the dueling club were happy and began to fill their pockets with gold coins. This is why the goblins at Gringotts make such a big deal out of ancient ruins. Damn greedy goblins! William out of nowhere held out his arm to stop the club members from stepping forward. "What's going on, Will?" Everyone stopped their movements and stared at the white-haired man, who was acting strangely, but since he was their censor on the expedition, then any action from him was important. William extended his arm to the front and pointed. "A snake." "A snake?" asked Anana. "Is it big?" "No, it's not one snake, it's many." William clenched his hands tightly. "It's a hydra of the forest." When William said that, the whole room went into a deep silence. Even the breaths of the other members of the club could be heard easily. The forest hydra is a little-known beast that does not appear in the Book of Fantastic Animals written by Newt Scamander, since he himself in an interview acknowledged never having met one of these magical beasts. But even though this beast is unknown to students from other schools in Castle Bruxo, is a beast that is talked about enough to terrify the young wizards just entering. Supposedly this beast was extinct, but William says there is one in the pyramid. "What did you say?" asked Nawin. "There is a forest hydra about 10 meters away." "William, describe the hydra, we have to be sure what it is that we are dealing with." William nodded and opened his mouth again. 3 elongated heads with 2 pairs of fangs on each side, long necks with spines and scales, 4 legs to move with speed. It has 2 membranes, one on each side connecting the hind legs to the tail, and of course, a tail at least 3 times the length of the body with a large stinger that drips venom. "Yes, it's definitely a hydra." Nawin nodded, resigned. "We can't fight a beast of such caliber. If the magical ministry classified it, then it would be at the top. It would be a XXXXX, deadly, impossible to tame or train. We have to get out of here without attracting their attention. Or get their attention to take out our enemies," William said loudly, drawing attention again. "We just have to flee to where our enemies are. They will either take care of the hydra or the other way around. Either way we will be the ones to make it out alive." "The risks are immense," hesitated Anana, looking around at her companions. "The rest of the options are just as dangerous as this one." Chapter 56, Expedition, 5. "William and I will take care of the hydra, while the rest must find a place to take shelter. Taking this magical beast to our enemies must be done with great care and control. At this moment only we have the ability to do this job." Anana stood up with his wand in hand. This was the first time William had seen Anana draw this wand since the beginning of a confrontation, since this young man was dedicated to training to perfect the art of magic with a wand. Nawin had as much or more ability than William, but someone had to take care of the group if things went wrong. Anana, the heir to the island of Rapa Nui, and William, the 5th son of the Rosiers, stood atop the mountains of gold inside the room. Both were high above, looking down at the magical beast below. "Nervous?" asked Anana. "I'd be an idiot if I wasn't nervous or afraid. We're facing one of the most dangerous beasts. We should start big, don't you think?" Anana stared at the hydra that had barely noticed them, raising their heads as it began to make a sound similar to an electric guitar. Anana raised her wand upwards. Gargan, the white light of raised towards the ceiling, then dropped down in the form of a bolt of lightning that struck the hydra, making it roar in pain. Wingardium Leviosa. Each of the heavy things in the room began to slowly rise, even the coins on all sides. Then it only took a wave of the hand for each object that was made to levitate to be thrown at great speed against the hydra. "Beginner magic with great effects, really something unusual," Anana commented. Throwing lightning from a start is a great entry. They both smiled confidently as they looked at the Hydra that lunged towards them the moment it regained its composure. Both mages backed off while using spells to slow the creature's advance. They had to keep their concentration on the path they were traveling, the three heads of the Hydra and the huge murderous sting that had threatened them several times throughout the confrontation. Both wizards were quite proficient, more so than all the other students in their own grades, but at this moment that strength they were proud of was minuscule against the Hydra. A beast capable of making the aurors fear a direct confrontation. One of the reasons for this was because of how thick its skin and scales were, causing many of the spells that would be used to confront this beast to be useless. "Where are our scapegoats?" asked Anina, avoiding the sting of the Hydra that buried itself in the position it was only a second ago. "On the other side of the door. They have their guard down, but if we go in first then our lives are not likely to come out intact," warned William, looking at his partner who already seemed to have taken action regarding it. Now the two of them had to move to be on the other side of the beast and force it to back off somehow or simply. Bam! Anina kicked the doors open with a single blow, leaving the Hydra and the two young mages in the open. All the treasure hunters stared at the duo of students who had entered the room they were guarding. They didn't delay a single second in pulling out their wands to defend themselves. Then they noticed the three heads peeking through the door. "I hope you don't mind, but I brought this boy to keep you company. As for us, we still have things to do." Both students started running in a random direction. The treasure hunters immediately fought back. They began their attack with ferocity. The magical beast in front of them was not something they could take lightly. No more than a minute had passed before the Hydra's sting impaled one of the hunters, killing him almost instantly. Though the Hydra scales were tough, withstanding the amount of spells and curses cast by the treasure hunters was an incredible feat, but their defenses were rapidly decaying. "It's a very strong beast," mentioned Anina, watching the battle from an upper floor, in a safe place where they could not be found easily but at the same time simple to access. Both students were waiting to see which of the two sides would give up first and then attack the winning side when it was weak. William and Anina were waiting quietly when the white-haired man's mind's eye detained new presences. "William," asked Anina, looking at the young man beside him, "what's wrong?" "We have company," replied William in a deep voice. "More treasure hunters?" William shook his head. Before Anina could continue speaking, William looked up at the ceiling. "They're Mortifagos." "Mortifagos? How can you be sure?" "The aura. My grandfather before had to serve Voldemort, and the aura of Mortifagos doesn't disappear. The sense of coldness their spirits possess is only below the Dementors." William remembered his grandfather and the first time he saw him, a terrifying man indeed. William and Anina focused their attention on the entrance to see the identity of Voldemort's new followers. Each of the morphs that entered the ruin were dressed in dark robes with a mask that protected them and kept them anonymous, but one look at them would petrify you. Chapter 57, Chapter 57, Expedition, 6. "This is bad, really bad," William repeated several times in his mind. He carefully observed the new unwanted guests in this expedition. "How is it possible that they all came to this ruin on the same day as us? We need to get out of the ruins and back to Castlabruxo. This got out of control," said William. They could win against the group of morphs or the treasure hunters, but there would be costs. More than one of the members of the dueling club would not return alive to the castle. There was an even greater chance that none of those involved would make it back to Castlabruxo. Of course, they still did not know the capacity of these mortifagi and if they were really real mortifagi and not just imitations. It was also worth noting that all the important mortifages were resting in their own private rooms inside Azkaban, with many Dementors making sure they lived to suffer another day. "We can't leave," said Anina. "I won't leave the members of the morning club behind. They don't know anything about what happened and they expect us to get them out of the vault. The vault door is strong and Nawin must have reinforced it to protect himself with the rest of the club members in case the worst happened. We can't leave them behind, but just getting them out is a suicidal plan. First we have to secure an escape route, or in the extreme case, we'll have to end everyone's lives inside the ruin." Anina listened to everything William said. She agreed with everything he said, but the moment she turned her face to look at the boy she could confirm her first assumption: William really was someone to be feared. The expression on William's face was frightening, cold and hard. Anyone who saw him out of the blue would be in for a big surprise. We have to find a strategic point to attack. The Hydra will be overpowered in no time, and from that point on we will be at a disadvantage. William ran down the second-floor corridor, followed quickly by Anna. While both of them were running through the second floor, William could see through a window to the supposed morphs located on the second floor. All of them were wearing the same dark clothes and masks with white figures on their faces. It would be difficult to know their identities, but it was obvious that these supposed morphs were only treasure hunters who were profiting with Voldemort's name to scare the competition. Both were still students. William was still a first-year student, which made this even worse. Although he is smart and perhaps better than all his peers, it was not enough to overcome an adult wizard, much less an adult dark wizard. As they both looked around and thought of a plan of action, down on the second floor a new battle had begun. The treasure hunters who were busy with the Hydra were now also being attacked by the eccentric morphs. Curses had begun to fly everywhere, and even the Hydra had sensed the danger and chose to retreat to preserve its life. "I have an idea," William said. He had been checking the infrastructure of the pyramid with his mind's eye. Although there were sectors he couldn't see due to interference, he could still look for specific points to make his plan work. "What do you plan to do?" "We're going to collapse the whole pyramid." "What? Did you lose your mind, Will?" William shook his head. "I'm still as sane as ever, it's just that this time I have a slightly wackier idea." Without saying anything else, he pointed his wand upwards. "I have no idea about the identity of these idiots, and I have no interest in knowing it. After all, once they are dead they are no longer important." From William's wand came a beam of light of a light blue color that hit between two pillars and entered the cracks. Then everything began to tremble. "What will happen to the rest of the club?" "Don't worry, they are far enough away from the area where the collapse will occur. We on the other hand should hurry to get out. This will be like a Muggle domino, everything will collapse." Both young men got up and started to run. Anna could only follow William as he was the only one who knew which was the safe area to escape. Everything happened too fast. The pyramid began to shake and the pillars collapsed out of nowhere. Dust was the signal to show that the pyramid was collapsing. Fragments began to fall from the ceiling, some of them quite large. Both students could only keep running forward. There was not enough time to stop and use some spell to clear the way. Every second of time was vital at the moment of survival, and just as they did, the morphs also began to flee. Once they reached the safe zone that William pointed out on the way, they turned to see how everything was collapsing inside the pyramid. They were also inside, but William had pointed out that there were specific areas that were built with another type of architecture, possibly rebuilt after a collapse in the past, so they were made for collapse cases. Anna still could not understand how William understood so many things, being such a little boy. I mean, he is older than Will, but it is as if it was the other way around. When the collapse inside the pyramid started to stop, Anna used her spell to make the dust disappear. There was rubble all over the place. William used his mind's eye to check the surroundings in case there was some kind of ambush or if there were any survivors. As they both walked over the rubble, William felt as if his foot stepped on something strange. He watched it for a moment to identify the source and knew immediately. "What are you doing?" asked Anna. "Helping me to remove this debris." Anna looked for a moment at what you wanted to do, Will, and understood immediately. He wanted to remove the Hydra from the rubble. "What will happen if it is still alive?" "That's why I'm digging it up. It's still alive." "Then why do you want to take it out?" "It's a magical beast. It acts under the orders imposed on it. It's not evil." "I hope you're not thinking of taming it. It's an impossible task." "If it was impossible, how come it was following other people's orders to guard the inside of the pyramid?" "Perhaps they used dark magic to control it. Remember that this pyramid is over 1,000 years old. It is likely that the wizards that inhabited the interior had more knowledge than we think." "That's obvious." William continued removing debris with levitation magic, "but I doubt it was done that way. Even Herpo the madman was able to tame a basilisk in ancient times. Those are two isolated cases. There's no hard proof that you can do it." "Exactly, just be perseverant. Remember that magical beasts can see your soul." Chapter 58, The Magician and the Hydra. Once all the debris was removed, William made a signal for Anna to move away. He could not let her scare the Hydra. One false step and it could end up creating another battle where one of the two parties would be finished. The Hydra was lying on its own body, with its 3 long necks rolled up to cover the heads. It had wounds all over its body. The battle against the treasure hunters and the collapse of the pyramid had done its work. The Hydra raised its 3 heads the moment it sensed William's presence. There was no way it would forget the little wizard that had attacked it. "Hey," William greeted as he approached slowly but with utmost confidence. The Hydra slowly stood up. Its height surpassed William by far. Its body alone, without counting the neck, already measured 2 meters. If the necks were counted, then it could reach the height of 5 meters with ease. Each of the heads looked at William as they bared their elongated fangs and hissed angrily. William stood still the moment he heard the noise. If he went any closer, then he would be in danger. "I have to find a way to show him that I am not dangerous and that I don't want to hurt him." William thought for a moment and said to himself, "What would Newt's commander do in my situation?" Slowly he moved his hand to his right pocket where he kept his wand. The Hydra got even more engorged than before and opened its mouth to show its fangs more than before. Even with the Hydra's threat, William didn't stop and took the wand slowly and soon put it on the ground. "What are you doing, Will?" Anna, who was watching everything that was happening, tightened her grip on her wand. If she saw the Hydra trying to finish off her partner, then she would take matters into her own hands, even if William had to get angry with him. He is the captain of the dueling club and he has to make decisions when the time calls for it. The Hydra watched as William set the wand down and returned to his position as he slowly raised his hands, symbolizing that he had nothing dangerous with him. "I have nothing with me, I mean you no harm," William said in a soft tone. The Hydra's eyes were focused on William, but somehow they seemed much less frightening than they had a few seconds before. A few seconds passed before William decided to take one more step closer to the Hydra, a slow and not very wide step, but it was a step nonetheless. He was moving away from his wand and closer to the magical beast listed in the most dangerous category of all. Anna in the distance clutched the wand in his hand tightly, almost strangling it. The fear of seeing his friend hurt in front of his eyes had him nervous. He wanted to do something, but at the same time he wanted to trust William's judgment. With every step William was taking, he was closer to the dangerous forest Hydra, further away from his wand, closer to a quick death, further away from safety, but somehow he felt he had to do this to grow as a person. Always staying safe would not help him grow in this world of magic. He extended his right arm slowly with the palm of his hand open, always facing forward. He kept his left arm raised so as not to raise suspicion on the magical beast. The Hydra hid its fangs. It had already noticed inside that William had no intention of harming it at this moment. It had wounds all over its body. It would be easy for the mage duo to end its life. During the previous battle, the head in the center lost one of its eyes. The head on the left had received several wounds and the head on the right had burns. "No, it can't be, right?" Anna said in surprise as she released her firm grip on her wand. He rubbed his hand over his eyes several times to confirm that those his eyes were seeing were not some kind of illusion. William had his arm raised with his right hand outstretched, and right in the palm rested the central head of the Hydra. Both wizard and magical beast had their eyes closed. Before coming on the expedition, William had told all the members of the dueling club about his family background, his life at Hogwarts, and about the house he had been selected into. He also explained the reason why the Sorting Hat was wrong. "William, the Sorting Hat was not wrong. Doing what you are doing right now really takes great courage. I believe you really are a Gryffindor," he said with a soft tone as he watched the scene in front of him. A first-year magic student had managed to tame one of the most dangerous magical beasts in the entire magical world. William searched through his things. He still had magic bags with space extension spells that he received when he won the Goblin Prize. All it took was to open the bag for the Hydra to get inside. There it could rest and replenish its energy. "That was amazing, William. You managed to tame a forest Hydra, one of the most dangerous magical beasts of all." "And perhaps one of the last of its kind," interrupted William as he picked up his wand and proceeded to secure the bag with the Hydra at his waist. "I need the existence of this Hydra to be a secret, at least until when I return to Hogwarts." "Sure, no problem. Come on, we still need to get the morning club out and confirm the death of all enemies. Chapter 59, Chapter 59, Are you capable? After getting the Hydra into the bag there were no major problems. With my mind's eye I found no other problems. We made it all the way to the room where the dueling club members were waiting. They were all hiding with their wands at the ready in case we entered the anyone but us. They had probably even thought about coming out to look for us. After all, it had been a long time since we had left the room. What happened out there? Asked Nawin approaching us. We wiped everyone out, or well, William wiped everyone out. He used the infrastructure of the pyramid to cause a collapse and bury everyone inside the pyramid. Hearing the explanation, everyone looked at William closely. What? Asked William as he noticed the stares on him. Anyone would have done the same thing. You fight directly, it was suicide. You're right, Will, there was no way we would win if we fought head-on. Anna knew their capabilities perfectly well, and it was enough just to see the opponents to get an idea of the dangers they faced. Where is the treasure? Asked Anna. She looked around and could only see the room that was once filled with treasure completely empty. Even my room isn't as clean as this room. One of the club members had a bag with an undetectable expansion enchantment. We were able to put the entire treasure inside. Once we return to Castlebrook so we can divide it among the participants, explained Nawin calmly. We even found the treasure guarded by the Hydra. That catches my attention. What is the treasure you are referring to? A mask, but it's useless. What do you mean, useless? It lost its special characteristics about 400 years ago. I tried to make it react with magic, but it was useless. It's completely ruined. Now it's just a wooden mask. Maybe if we sell it in the Muggle market we can get some profit, but with the treasure found I think it's a waste. Anna and Nawin sighed at the same time. From the beginning, coming to the pyramid was to find a special treasure with which they could become famous. Let's just go back to school, Anna said somewhat sadly and started to move, leaving the rest behind. The rest of the dueling club followed Anna. They all knew of their captain's intentions. It was unfortunate that things didn't go as he wanted, but at least they were able to secure the money needed for all the tuition and maybe something for the future after graduating. We were lucky, Nawin said as they walked through the jungle with the rest of the club members. There were many enemies inside the pyramid. We were really lucky not to lose anyone. Yes. Anna had a serious expression on her face. Something's bothering you. What was it that happened while we were waiting? Dark wizards, William said. They were morphs. Followers of who, do you know? The expression on Nawin's face was complicated. She had been surprised but avoided raising her voice. There was no need to upset the rest of the club, much less William. Do you think he's right? Anna nodded. My father once told me about the morphs and what they looked like, even the details of their masks. It all matches. It could just be a coincidence. Maybe they were imposters. William said the same thing and then buried them in the rubble. He didn't want to take the bodies out to confirm the identities. Right now all I want to do is get to the school. It's the only place where I'm sure we won't be harmed. As they walked in the dark without any kind of light to avoid attracting attention, here in the distance the howl of a wolf. Is this a joke? Wondered Anna, raising her eyes to the sky only to be met with a grandiose full moon. Shit. A werewolf? Asked one of the club members. Worse, a werewolf. Anna squeezed his hand and bit his lip. We have to get out of this place as fast as we can. It's not safe to be here and we can't fight the she-wolf. William listened to Anna's words and followed closely behind the group while looking back every couple of steps. A werewolf woman? What will she look like? Is it her? Asked Nawin, following his captain closely. What if it's her? Anna looked at Nawin. Of course it's her. I could never forget the tone of her howl, and believe me, if we don't get out of this place in the next few minutes then we will be in big trouble. She is different from other lycanthropes. I think she could even be compared to Fenrir Greyback. In wildness or in strength. Do you think this is the right time for jokes? We have one of the fiercest creatures in the Amazon biting our feet and you make jokes. What do we do if she finds us? This was a life or death question. So far Anna had only talked about escaping. She had never referred to the case in which she would catch them. Nawin knew that his friend and captain was not happy to fight her, but now they need a leader willing to leave behind all kinds of feelings. I will face her, and if necessary then I will finish her off. You can't finish her off, if you do then it could turn into a crisis between many families and you know it. She may be a lycanthrope, but she's still important, warned Nawin, knowing things could get out of control. You just have to stop her long enough for the weaker ones to escape without being bitten. I'm important too, even if Anagimaris or Rita or Rajo came after me it would be impossible for them to do anything to me. My father is one of the 5 most powerful wizards in the world, my last name is important too. But I also know you like her and I doubt you could really finish her off, even if she were human. She's more skilled than you in magical duels, we both know that. Anna rubbed her hands over her face, she looked to the side. You really are annoying, Nawin. Let's just hurry back so we don't have to find out each other's ability. Chapter 60, Fighting in the Jungle. The members of the dueling club were moving fast through the jungle, trying to get away from the beast that was following them. Obviously they all knew it was a lycanthrope, they just had to get to the pyramids to be in a safe zone. We're almost there, said one of the rookie students in the dueling club. Everyone was full of happiness, and then another howl was heard coming from the direction they were headed. Is this a joke? Asked a girl from the dueling club. They were just messing with us and we fell for it. Gather round everyone, exclaimed Nawin, and they all gathered in the same area, backs against backs, looking all around with their wands ready for the coming combat. William, can you see them? Asked Anna, looking at the boy near him. Yes. William pointed his hand. The one that was following us decided to come a little slower for some reason I fail to understand, but the last one that showed up will be here in 30 seconds, we must be careful. He is extremely fierce and seems to enjoy the situation. Enjoys it? William nodded. There is a possibility he is a high-ranking lycanthrope. As they thought about what to do next, the movement of the leaves became clear to all present. It's here, said William, and then from out of the large leaves of the jungle plants appeared a slender figure full of hair all over its body with an elongated snout full of fangs. Greyback, muttered Nawin. He pointed his wand which had a blue light at the tip. I'll kill you this instant, you bastard, it's time to end your life. What's wrong with him? Asked William, looking at the angry Nawin, who was usually a calm wizard and even the most responsible of the group. During the short period of time he had known him, he had never seen him make that expression. Can you see the necklace around Nawin's neck? Asked Anna, and waited for William to nod to continue his explanation. It's a magical object enchanted by his family to locate a certain person, Fenrir Greyback. William knew about the hobbies of this particular lycanthrope: bite children or young people to transform them into werewolves and thus create a feeling of hatred towards the Society of Wizards. Remus Lupin, who was a friend of James Potter, was a victim of Greyback. She bit her younger sister 2 years ago. During the vacations there was a pause. There were things that simply weren't easy to mention. She's dead. She committed suicide. She couldn't take the pressure of living her life as a werewolf. Nawin swore to avenge her, and her family had created a necklace that reacted if the guy who attacked her sister was around. Nawin didn't wait any longer and let out the curse that was waiting on the tip of his wand. At the moment the curse was cast, William thought he heard a woman's song at the same time that all the plants in the jungle withered. A curse created by a hags of her clan. Greyback felt the danger in his body. He had to roll on the ground to avoid the curse, but that wasn't the only thing Nawin had in his arsenal. Expulse! He exclaimed, and again a blue light flew towards Greyback, creating huge explosions in the process. Conf Ringo! Several curses flew towards the trees and rocks that were in the vicinity of Greyback's position, then all these objects exploded out of nowhere. Greyback's body was thrown away by the explosions, but Nawin wasn't finished. Then from his wand came out a beam of light that tied the lycanthrope's arm and tied it to a tree. He repeated the process 3 more times to tie the rest of the limbs and 1 for the neck. It was then that Nawin took a step forward. He tightened his wand with an incredible strength. I thought you would be much tougher. I looked for a lot of information about your abilities and I prepared myself to kill you. I thought it would happen in a little more time, but I am grateful that you came here voluntarily. I can end this pain in my chest sooner than I thought. Nawin raised his wand. The tip had turned red. May Elmapu have mercy on your pitiful soul, Weekyuf. Elmapu, creator spirit of the Mapu in the Mapuche culture. Weekyuf, Evil spirits in Mapuche culture. Mapu, Earth. Before Nawin could deliver the final blow to finish Greyback, this one started laughing like a madman, surprising everyone who watched attentively the battle without interrupting the revenge. What's so funny? When you attacked me I could sense your hatred and I searched my memories for those I had harmed near these lands, then now I managed to remember you. You are the boy who cried with the little girl in his arms. I remember how you tried to protect her, and I also remember when you pissed in your pants. Greyback forced his muscles, breaking the bonds imposed on his body. I remember you perfectly. How is your sister? The expression on Nawin's face was more frightening than before. He tried to say something but it was simply impossible in the state he was in. Greyback laughed evilly and lunged towards the wizard, then two explosive curses hit him full in the face, forcing him back. William and Anina were a little further away than Nawin, both holding their wands pointed at Greyback. Beast, that's our friend and I think it goes without saying what will happen if you touch him. Greyback glanced to the front, then saw several wands pointed at him, all with the same curse on the tip. You can regenerate, William mentioned, looking at him as he smiled arrogantly, but can you take that much damage to your body at the same time? Chapter 61, Chapter 61, The Power of the Dueling Club. Ha 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 ha. Greyback let out several guffaws. You think some kids who barely even know how to ride a broom can defeat me? Fenrir Greyback, the terror of many warriors. Just like we practiced before, all together at the same time. Anina had her wand extended just like all the members of the dueling club. Flipendo. From the wands came the hexes with great speed, all cast at the same time towards the same target. Sensing the danger approaching, Greyback took a step back and then began to run. He spun in the air, stepped between the spells, barely avoiding them, but then thrust himself forward in a manner as wild as his appearance. Greyback is coming very fast, I need defenses first. Group 5 juniors stepped forward and cast the incantation Protego. An invisible barrier came into existence to stop Greyback's advance. The other group continued to cast hexes to push Greyback back, though so far to no avail. Do you think a barrier will be able to stop me, you idiots? Greyback moved with speed and then used his fist to punch the barrier and smash it to pieces immediately. Hello. Flipendo Maxima. From William's wand it extended to the front, leaving a trail of white-colored light that impacted directly into Greyback's face, sending him far backwards, straight from the Hogwarts library. Tie him up. From each of their wands came a whip that lashed Greyback from different points on his body. That didn't work before, do you think it will work? Greyback sneered. This time it's not just one of us, this time it's the whole dueling club, Anina mentioned with full confidence. But you're forgetting one thing, I'm not alone, remember? Anina felt the sweat on his back cool down and then he remembered what they were running away from in the beginning. He looked to the other side and there he was, the figure he didn't want to see. Manuela. He murmured a little sadly. William pointed his wand at the wolf woman. Did you say Manuela? Shit, exclaimed Anina in annoyance. You have to tell her. Nawin looked at his companion. She has the right to know and you have the obligation to fight. I will hold Greyback. Anina looked at William, who was puzzled, looking at the new opponent. She is Manuela, your guardian. She is a werewolf and she is a bit wilder than others of her kind. Unfortunately today is her special day in the month. And the wolf's bane potion. She is an exception to the rule. Her physiology and blood heritage affect the lycanthropy disease, make her immune to the potion. She is also more fierce, wild, and stronger than other lycanthropes. I will stand up to her. I will help you, interrupted William, but Anina extended her arm towards him to stop him. She is my responsibility, he said, confident, but seeing William's expression he could only smile. She and I have known each other since first year. We were never the best of friends, I guess you can understand that, but she and I trusted each other. Now that she is in front of us with the ability to harm our mates, then I must stop her even if it means one of us dies. There was a moment of silence between them both. William the first. Think I must say this before the battle. He stared for a moment at his wand. Magic and wands are dangerous objects that can be used to harm people or the world, but we are not that kind of wizards. I use my wand to save the people I love and care about. So what do you use your magic for, Will? My magic? muttered William without issuing an answer. Then when he looked at Anna again, she was gone. Hurry Perry! Then the wind picked up like a tornado and headed straight for Manuela, who held it with her bare hands, demonstrating her superior power. Anna ran to the side, levitated the stones from the ground and threw them consecutively while forcing a lightning bolt to fall on Manuela, but even that was able to withstand the wolf woman. "Come on, stay still, that will be faster if you just fall asleep like normal," complained Anna, moving a bit away from her to avoid being hurt or bitten in the worst case scenario. She raised her wand again. This time she created several restraints, but all were shattered without any difficulty. "Well, I have no more ideas, these are the best non-lethal spells in my repertoire." When William reached the other battlefield, things had gotten out of control. Nawin was trying to restrain Greyback along with 2 girls from the dueling club. The rest of the members were on the ground unconscious. Chapter 62, Chapter 62, Rosier vs Greyback. "You guys really are entertaining. You are different from other wizards your age, that is evident. You do not possess the rivalry that Hogwarts has and act as one individual. You guys are the prey I like the most. Just imagine when you all get bitten, you can work as a pack." Greyback laughed as he looked at the members of the dueling club, then pointed at William. "Your face looks familiar. Did I bite any of your family members?" "No, you never had that much strength to do so. After all, you could only bite those your master indicated," William scoffed, gaining some of Greyback's anger. "My master?" He stared at William for a moment, then smiled. "I see. I understand. I remember why your face looked familiar. Maybe your hair is different, but you have your father's ugly face. You can talk to him when I'm done with you, Rosier." "Since you put it that way, then I guess you have a way to free yourself, but I am not the dueling club. As you put it, I am a Rosier, and you must know what that means by now." At the tip of William's wand glowed a pale blue light, almost like winter ice. Then it was cast towards Greyback. "This is a curse that I learned while at Hogwarts, but was not usable until I was here at Castle Bruxo. It comes straight from the Rosier family libraries, kept for generations. Too bad it seems my father couldn't read properly." William was referring directly to the book he received during Christmas of his first year at Hogwarts. The curse reached Greyback's body and hit his right arm, which at the same time began to slowly break into pieces. Greyback let out a roar full of pain and anger. All his hatred was directed towards William. His body was suffering unimaginable pain, and all for a worthless little wizard in his eyes. The scream that Greyback let out could be heard miles away. All his muscles swelled. His right arm was crumbling with every passing second. Then using his left arm, he pulled the whip that was holding him back to slam the young witch against a tree. "Hold him, we need more time if we want to kill him. The curse is not yet fully consuming him." William held his wand out towards Greyback. He could not move or lose concentration. Nawin and Maria used all their strength to hold Greyback as long as possible. It was the only chance they had to kill him, so Nawin could finally take revenge. But although they used all the strength their bodies gave them, it was insufficient. Greyback was still stronger than them, and soon he would be free once again. The curse had devastated 3/4 of the right arm and was now consuming the right ear as well. The pain for the lycanthrope was immense, it could be seen in his face. Then he used the movement from before to knock out the other girl. Only Nawin was left, but it was insufficient to keep a Greyback restrained. He gave a tug and pulled him, then only a punch was enough to send him far away, spinning on the ground until he ended fainted on the floor. William didn't move an inch. He didn't take his attention off Greyback at any time. If he killed him right now, then Voldemort would have one less servant in his return, which would mean that the Golden Trio would have less work and he could enjoy his student life a little more. Greyback was drooling and looking at William like a madman. He wanted to murder him, you could see it in his eyes. Besides, the corrosive curse was hurting him too much. He couldn't let it spend any more time active. He had to end the curse right now. "Do you have any plans, Rosier?" asked Greyback between groans, slowly approaching towards William, who didn't move a single millimeter. "No." William smiled. The curse had eaten away almost all of Greyback's ear, and there was almost no trace left of his right arm. Greyback raised his arm and delivered a lethal blow to William, sending him flying even further than Nawin had before. "And that's it, the damage was immense, but I will recover from this, I always do." Greyback laughed in William's face as he pointed to his right shoulder, as there was nothing left of his arm. his entire right arm was corroded. "You won't be cured," laughed William. "It's a very old curse, almost like Hogwarts School itself. You'll probably never get your arm back." "I suppose then it will be proof that you lived, child." Greyback's claws made a hole in the abdomen side. It was the first time in this life that William felt pain like this. The last time was during his first life during the fire. Still with life escaping from his body, William did not stop. There was no way he would stop for a wound, not this time. This is his second chance. He was barely living. He gathered as much power as possible in his wand, then exclaimed loudly, "Flipendo Maxima!" The hex caught Greyback off guard, sending him flying through the air. William slowly stood up, using his right hand to squeeze the side where the wound was. He was aiming at his enemy. From his lips clotted blood was escaping, but even so he didn't stop. Again he aimed with the pale blue light. He had to aim correctly. This was his last chance. If he hit him in the head, then killing Greyback would be quick. The problem was that he could barely stay conscious. "Shit," he complained in his mind, watching as Greyback ran towards him again. It was at that moment that William noticed a shadow pass over his head, and then Greyback was hit. The werewolf fighting Anina was now hitting Greyback with full force. Manuela. Chapter 63, Capítulo 63, Castla Bruxo, 3. Manuela began a direct battle against Greyback, the latter being at a complete disadvantage. Wounds on his body and one less arm made things difficult. "What is Manuela doing here?" asked William as he took out a potion to heal the wound on his abdomen. Anina arrived right after with several marks all over her body and her uniform torn to shreds. "Let's say she beat me. I couldn't defeat her." She stood watching William drink the potion. "Would you mind sharing some?" "Sure, here." They were both in terrible condition. The amount of battles throughout the day had exhausted them both physically and psychologically. "We have to help her," William said, holding his wand once more. The wound on her abdomen that even with the potion still hadn't healed to the maximum was only first aid. "We don't have the energy to do anything. Even if we wanted to do magic to fight, we would only end up interfering, and maybe they will target us again. Besides, the rest of them are out cold. There has to be something I can do. We can't just stand here watching Manuela fight by herself." William closed his eyes. He clenched his hand. He needed to think of a plan. He needed something to help him. Then when he opened his eyes, he could see a bag hanging between his clothes. He had forgotten he had it. "I know this is a bit rude of me, but if you want to live in a safe zone, then I must return safely home. For now I ask for your cooperation." William pulled out from between his clothes the small bag and opened it, pointing in the direction where the fight of both lycanthropes was. Then from the bag 3 snake heads poked out, stretching their tongues rapidly. The Hydra's body finally appeared on the battle scene. It looked all around and focused mainly on William, who pointed towards the battle. "The one-armed werewolf is the enemy. Will is trying to reason with a magical beast. It's impossible for it to do as you command. You'd be surprised how capable magical beasts are compared to humans." William watched as the snake began to run towards the fight. The snake's wounds were quite recovered. Even the right eye recovered after William handed it one of his potions. Each of the actions performed by William developed this confidence on the part of the Hydra towards the young wizard, which now translated into the movements of the Hydra that did not hesitate to go into battle. The long necks of the Hydra swung from side to side, seeking to confuse the enemy, while it was the sting of its tail that moved for the attack. Greyback could feel the danger approaching as he kicked Manuela to get free and dodge to the side, but it was the sharp fangs of the Hydra that awaited him. Greyback bellowed in rage, using his claws to claw at the Hydra's face before being caught by the other 2 heads. One of the most special members of the Dark Lord's army, Fenrir Greyback, the one that many wizards in the world held a grudge against or adored, the one who was one of the most wanted in the magical world, the one who caused fear in wizards, was now on the verge of death in front of a group of students. "This is the end of you." The moment William said that, the Hydra buried its stinger in one of Greyback's legs to finish defeating him, so that the battle was finally over. "Is that all?" asked Anina. "Yes." "We won?" asked Anina incredulously. She blinked several times and then let out a sigh. "Yes, we won." William walked up to the Hydra. He used a petrifying curse to finally stop it. he had to take it to Castlabruxo to hand it over to the authorities. Anna checked Manuela's condition. She had lost consciousness, and as the sun was peaking in the distance her transformation was slowly beginning to fade. William took off his cloak to cover her before she woke up. Nawin and the rest of the students began to wake up little by little, and when they noticed that Greyback was defeated they all began to celebrate. There were no dead, some wounded, but nothing that could not be cured in the infirmary. The Hydra did not return to the bag, instead it carried the wounded William on its back and Manuela, who was in the arms of the first one. "We are almost to the pyramids," mentioned Nawin, who was carrying an injured girl on his back. "How do we explain all this?" "Leave it in my hands, the director will only know what we tell her, we will probably even get a medal for our actions. Just imagine Castlabruxo Duel Club conquers the ruins of a pyramid, faces treasure hunters. Just thinking about the headline in tomorrow's paper makes me excited. My father will be proud." Anna turned to see all his companions who had remained silent while he spoke. "What's going on?" Nawin looked to the side and said nothing. The rest of the dueling club did the same, even William preferred to look away. "Oh, I get it." Anna sighed and turned around with her eyes closed, then knelt down and put her head on the ground. "I beg your forgiveness, Principal Anna." Headmistress Anna Gimmeries de Castlabruxo. She was standing staring at all her students. There were other teachers beside her who were watching the Hydra riding William. "Professor Eliana, take Manuela and the wounded to the infirmary, they need rest," ordered the principal, and immediately Professor Eliana did as requested. The wounded who knew of the situation moved away. They wanted to avoid any kind of trouble, leaving their captain behind. William signaled the Hydra to follow the rest of the students, but before he could move away he was called by the headmistress. "William." "Yes." "Stay." William pursed his lip and had an exchange of glances with Anna, who only raised her shoulders in apology. Then the headmistress turned her attention to the lump on the Hydra's back. Greyback had returned to his human form, so it was easy for the headmistress to guess the lycanthrope's identity. "It's Fenrir Greyback," she exclaimed in surprise. All the teachers drew their wands and prepared for combat, but the headmistress held up her hand to stop them. "You defeated Fenrir Greyback," she said, looking at the two students in front of her who only looked at her attentively. "Professor Gary." "Yes, headmistress. I called the minister and informed her about the defeat of Fenrir Greyback. She needs to know." Professor Gary disappeared immediately. Then the headmistress waved her wand and several chains appeared from the ground to completely bind Greyback's body, allowing the Hydra not to carry him. She looked at the pair of young men. They were irresponsible. Not only did they break the rules to leave the castle and cross the jungle in search of ruins that no one knew existed, but they also faced many dangers. They put the safety of all their companions at risk just because of their selfish greed. "William Rosier," she exclaimed, causing William to startle. "Albus Dumbledore said you were one of his most outstanding students, perhaps the smartest of your entire generation, but he also said you were a person who were constantly involved in the most alarming events of all. He really wasn't wrong. And thanks to all of you the Amazon jungle was able to remain a place full of peace. If it wasn't for you, anything inside the ruins would be in the hands of dark wizards, and even Manuela could have been killed by Greyback. You deserve a rest and maybe an award for your labors." William and Anna looked at each other, then they could finally laugh nonchalantly. Translated with www.dpel.com/translator, free version. Chapter 64, Chapter 64, Castlabruxo, 4. That morning Castlabruxo was very lively. There were many wizards and aurors that day. No one could have imagined that such an event would happen. Everyone was waiting to see the protagonists of the event, but those who were involved, all and without exception, were in the school infirmary. Professor Gary was the one who suffered the most, since he had the difficult task of restraining anyone who tried to enter the infirmary. After a couple of hours, William and Anna woke up almost at the same time. Some other members of the club also woke up. They were a little less injured than the others. "Ugh!" complained William with his body full of pain. He lifted his body slightly, then he realized that his abdomen was full of bandages. He looked everywhere. "Why am I the only one with bandages?" "The wounds caused by Fenrir Greyback are special," said the nurse, pointed to William's bandage. "From the way the wound was made, I guess he stabbed you with his claws. You should be dead now. but I guess you used a potion, that helped, but the wound will never heal completely, I'm afraid the marks will never go away. Perfect, now you have a war mark. Anna pointed towards William. I think we should get up and go outside, the commotion can be heard all the way out here. Commotion. Everyone wants to know what happened before we captured Greyback. Anna tapped her foot on Nawin's body, who was on the stretcher next to hers. I know you're awake, I need you to be with us as well. Can't you guys do it? Asked Nawin, looking at his companions. You are capable of facing great dangers, you can also be heroes in front of wizards from all over the world, it's not that I feel less than you, it's just that I'm a slacker. Why aren't you able to be quiet? They were all surprised to hear the female scream coming from the other side of the infirmary. The girl herself was upset, but contrary to what she expected, the trio of young men were happy to see her. She looked around. Why are we in the infirmary? She stopped her attention on William, who had the bandages on his body. What happened to you? I think we owe you an explanation, but first, let's go out, our audience is waiting. Anna got up from the bed and threw everyone a uniform. Change your clothes, we have to be presentable, I don't want my father to see me without my uniform. After a few minutes everyone was ready, all the members of the dueling club were awake. Let's go. The door to the infirmary opened and everyone started to exit that room, then they were greeted by a plethora of cameras with lights that dazzled anyone who was unsuspecting. The headmistress had taken care of most of the work, they only had to answer a few questions, give statements, and pose for a few photographs. The Aurors from South America were in charge of capturing any dark wizards that were in the ruins, as well as recovering the body of anyone involved. The morphs that were found were not special, just dark wizards without much relevance compared to Greyback. Greyback was taken into the custody of the Brazilian Ministry of Magic to be handed over to the British Ministry of Magic in the future so that he would be sent to Azkaban as soon as possible with a heavy sentence. Nawin was not happy with the news about Greyback's fate, but consoled himself with the knowledge that there was a chance he would be kissed by a Dementor. Then a couple of days later the fated moment had arrived. William was once again in the office of Headmistress Anna Gimmeries. Near her were several students and teachers he had studied with during the vacations. The time has come to return to Hogwarts, William, said the headmistress, looking at the boy in front of her. When you arrived at Castle Bruxo all you had in mind was to gain knowledge. I was happy to have a student like you in my school. Now that your stay in Castle Bruxo finally came to an end, I can see that there is not much left of the William of the first day. You have friends with whom you spent difficult and joyful moments. I hope that the teachings of my school will be remembered in your head through the years, and when you are a great magician then you will remember us. Of course I will remember what I learned at Castle Bruxo, after all I am also a student of this school. William pointed with his hand to the emblem on his uniform. Of course, if you are willing to let me continue to call myself your student. It would be a great honor, she said with a smile. Then from one of her desk drawers she pulled out 3 things. This is a diploma certifying your learning in zoology and herbology at Castle Bruxo. Our school is a leader in herbology. The second package came in a small wooden box. This is a gift sent by the minister herself. William could see the golden ring with engravings all over it and a small red gem in the center. This is a special item, it has healing properties for whoever wears it, and it can even resist dark magic. I hope it will be useful in your future. William was quick to place the ring on his finger. It's great, it will be really useful in the future. The last gift comes from my own collection of items. She took out another wooden box, a little bigger than the previous one. I can guess that you will have some setbacks if you keep guarding dangerous magical beasts on your way, so I took the liberty to look for a solution. This little box in my hand has an undetectable chain extension enchantment. Now its inside is huge and it is able to support many magical beasts inside. William received it in his hands. The box was no bigger than the palm of his hand, but if what Headmistress Anne said was true, then he would never again have to worry about space for the magical beasts he carried with him. Each of the gifts he held in his hands was important and they were prepared specifically for him. There was no way he could not feel reluctant to leave Castle Bruxo, but he had told Dumbledore that he would return to Hogwarts and he was true to his words. Translated with www.dpel.com/translator, free version. Chapter 65, Chapter 65, Farewell Gifts. "We have something for you too," said Manuela, approaching William. "I'm really sorry for not fulfilling my role as guardian as I should. You weren't supposed to hurt yourself, but it's not your fault. I didn't heed your advice. Everything that happened was because of my own decisions." William stopped his guardian's apologies. He didn't need her to see him that way. The last thing he wants to see is the girl who had been watching over him apologizing like that. "This is from us to you." Between Anana's arms was a lump that moved slightly. Anana reached over and began to remove the blanket covering the lump in his arms. "Before you see it, I want to tell you that I wanted something with claws and fangs, but she decided that this is what you take with you." A rodent-like creature with a long snout like a platypus, silky coat and fluffy tail, with a pouch on its chest for carrying items. "A beetle!" exclaimed William, picking it up from Anana's arms to carry it by his own. "This is great. I told you he'd like it." Manuela jabbed her elbow into Anana's arm. "Still, a bit of claws and fangs wouldn't have gone amiss." "Thank you very much, I'll take care of him." William stroked the scarab lightly. Then the fire in the fireplace in the headmistress's office got brighter and brighter until it reached 2 meters. Everyone was surprised, but then among the flames an old man appeared. "Headmaster Dumbledore." "Hello, William. The first see that your stay at Castle Bruxo was just as hectic as it was at Hogwarts." Dumbledore sketched a soft smile. No one in the entire magical world knew the secrets behind that smile, and William, who had witnessed history from another point of view, was clear that Dumbledore was a person of very calculating plans. "It was just an educational session. I learned many things here." Dumbledore looked directly into William's eyes. "I see that you gain much more than just knowledge." He looked at everyone in the office. "Something that you were unable to find during a whole year at Hogwarts, and I hope next year you will be able to find it." "There's still time for that, Headmaster. I think it's better to take advantage of every day." Dumbledore nodded. He didn't want to say much more, and William really hoped he wouldn't say anything else. Both headmasters gave each other a nod that no one but them in the room fully understood. "Very well, it's time to go back," Dumbledore signaled by extending his hand towards William. "If we leave now, you will have a week to rest with your family." William let out a sigh. "You could have come for me on the last day of the vacations, Headmaster Dumbledore." The latter let out small chuckles. "You know very well that I can't do that. We have to follow protocol." "Yes." William walked towards Dumbledore and put his hand on Dumbledore's arm, holding his sleeve. He looked towards his friends one last time and then disappeared along with Dumbledore. Far away from Castle Bruxo, this time in Great Britain, in a large castle with vast fields around it, was the home of the iconic Rosier family. Outside the Rosier family estates, both Dumbledore and William appeared, both looking completely normal. "The time has come for me to say goodbye to William. Will you leave me here? Your grandfather Lord Rosier knows you are here. You should have no trouble getting in." Dumbledore turned around. "Besides, it is unlikely that a werewolf would attack you here." Then he disappeared without a trace. "But there are my brothers," muttered William resignedly. The gates of the manor opened on their own, allowing the young wizard to pass inside. The journey was by no means a game, and he spent a few minutes walking before finally reaching the manor doors. There was no need to knock on the door when it opened on its own, revealing one of the family servants. "Welcome, young Rosier." Verona, the elven servant of the family, bowed. "Master Rosier is waiting for you." "It's been a while, Verona." William greeted the elf with a smile, then looked inside the mansion. "Grandfather is waiting for me. I guess my return to the mansion couldn't be quiet." Finally he was inside the mansion once again. Things hadn't changed at all, even the decorations were the same. He had barely taken a dozen steps into the mansion when he noticed the gaze from the side. He turned and looked at the person in question. "It is an honor to be in the presence of the great William Rosier." The female voice had a mocking tone, but it was simply ridiculous to use it on William, who was hardly ever angry. "Leslie," William called, smiling, "are you any fatter?" She just laughed. "Is that what you were able to learn among the Gryffindor failures, or while playing with werewolves in Castle Bruxo?" They both just stared at each other for a couple of seconds without saying anything. Then Leslie opened her sleek, slender mouth. "You and I don't really like each other, but I have to warn you something for everyone's sake. Try not to be alone with Mom. She still doesn't assimilate the fact that you're part of Gryffindor. She doesn't even know that you have a dirty blood friend." Perfect, said William with an evil grin. If she comes after me, then I have how to make her suffer. Leslie smiled slightly. Castle Bruxo really did make you different. Well, I have to go see grandfather. Chapter 66, Chapter 66, Family Disagreements. William stood outside the personal office of his grandfather, the current head of the Rosier family. Before entering he had to control his breathing. He had a life on his shoulders, it was true, but for some strange reason he felt a great pressure just being in front of his grandfather. Don't stay outside, come in. The voice came from inside, surprising William. From the tone of voice it seemed that this conversation is not a warm welcome, as is the case with many other families the moment their children return. He put his hand on the doorknob, operating it to enter. The door creaked so much that it made William close one of his eyes. In front of him, only a few steps away, was the head of the Rosier family, who took over the responsibility after the death of Evan Rosier at the hands of the dark wizard hunter and famous orator, Alastair Moody. The position of head of the family should have been given to Marcus Rosier, William's older brother, years ago, but Lord Rosier refused, saying that Marcus was not ready to carry the responsibility of the family. Ah! I'm here, grandfather, Verona said. You were expecting me, William mentioned to get his grandfather's attention. Lord Rosier didn't raise his face at all and simply said in a cold voice, you should announce your return properly first. That's what a good grandson does, don't you think, William? Oh, right, my mistake. William nodded his head. He sketched a faint smile, then looked back at his grandfather. I'm back, grandfather, how is everything? This time Lord Rosier raised his head and looked at William with a slightly warmer expression. He gave a couple of blinks and opened his mouth. This uniform is the closest you will ever come to being a Slytherin in your life. The green matches your hair exceptionally, I might add. William looked down at himself and gave a flip. I think it's a rather peculiar uniform, and it's really comfortable. It even has several types of protections. I can tell just by looking at it. Was it useful during your adventure? You know about the adventure? Asked William in surprise, but then Lord Rosier dropped a copy of the journal the professed on the desk. There on the front page was the photo featuring the children who captured the famous Fenrir Greyback. You are front page news, added Lord Rosier. Not many can make it out alive in a battle against Greyback. Now the question, did he bite you? William made direct eye contact with his grandfather. He looked at the family portraits on the walls of the office, who were also staring at him. Obviously everyone wanted to know the answer, but then William removed the top of his robes, leaving his wound visible. A wound of such magnitude. It is fortunate that you are still alive, but it is even more fortunate that it did not bite you. It would be a regrettable event for the family. A genius with your talent is not often. Fortunately I also made some friends who saved my life in battle. William remembered his fellow soldiers, those who fought side by side against Greyback. I could recognize almost everyone in the photograph. Some half-bloods among them, but there were also many pure-bloods with a lot of relevance. You have a great eye for making friends. You make your summers really valuable, not like your brothers. You have a great future waiting for you, William. William and Lord Rosier stayed talking for quite some time inside the office. There were many things to say about Castle Bruxo. William showed him the drawings of the Mayan tablets. He handed over some Mayan gold coins to keep among the family keepsakes. When the conversation seemed to end, William looked at his grandfather. I saw Leslie earlier, when I entered the mansion. She didn't seem to have any grudge against me, but she mentioned that I shouldn't get close to my mother. Oh, yes, Leslie is right in what she says. Lord Rosier stroked his own hands and looked towards the window. This is a matter of family branches. She fears the story is like Sirius Black's. You know the two are related. She thinks you will betray the family just because you were selected to Gryffindor. I heard she sent you a blank letter. She waited for your arrival so they could discuss everything, but you successfully escaped to South America. Yet, I didn't expect the Sorting Hat to send me to Gryffindor either. I actually expected something like Ravenclaw because of my quest for knowledge, but it was a surprise the moment the hat spoke. I felt everyone's gaze, and then it was the same all year. Do you think your life would be better in Ravenclaw? Asked Lord Rosier. William shook his head. Honestly, it doesn't matter what house the hat put me in, I wouldn't have fit in anywhere. 3 of the 4 houses don't want me because my father was a Death Eater, and the last one would have just wanted to turn me into a minion. Lucius has always tried to show superiority among the 28 families. The Weasleys don't make it difficult, and we lost momentum after your father's death, but the new generation is strong, but they are still puppies. This is the last chance Lucius has to ruin us." William sat down on the couch and let out a long sigh full of frustration. "The Malfoys are really annoying. If we had proof of their services under Voldemort's name, we could ruin their family." "William! Hey! Don't call him by his name, call him by any other name, but don't use his name. You must know by now that it is frowned upon in society." Lord Rosier lashed out at William with an authoritative tone. During his lifetime he had seen many wizards who wanted to show bravery by naming the Dark Lord by his name, and in the end only a few stayed alive. On the other hand, I think it's best to stay away from the Malfoys as much as possible. Chapter 67, Chapter 67, Business. Grandfather William called, crossing one leg over the other. He put both hands on his knee and looked directly at the head of the family. "I have a plan. We won't have to lower our heads to any family, and there is a chance that the ministry will have to back down to us." Lord Rosier heard what his grandson said. It was like the ideas of any child with big dreams. If any other of his grandchildren had said something like that, he would have laughed without a second thought, but for a strange and incomprehensible reason this was not the case. His grandson's eyes were different from those of his siblings at the same age. "What is this?" wondered the old man, looking at William. He could feel the cold sweat on his back. What happened with William while he was in Castle Bruxo? The boy's presence definitely had a change, as if he had gained the confidence he was missing. "What's on your mind, child?" William didn't answer immediately. He searched through his clothes for a small vial and placed it on the desk casually. "While I was in Brazil there were many things to learn. Unfortunately my brain wasn't able to retain all the information. I learned a huge variety of things that probably at Hogwarts I will never be able to learn, and to do everything I needed to actually had to practice an advanced potion. A teacher from Castle Bruxo supported me in the process, and I ended up creating this potion." Lord Rosier took the small vial the size of his little finger in his hands. The liquid inside was golden in color but a bit more opaque than expected. There was no way the old man wouldn't know what potion it was, but it was still so strange. "Is it a memory potion?" he asked, looking again at his grandson to confirm his suspicion, and he nodded his head slightly. "Why is it different?" "It is a variation. It must be used in smaller proportions, but it is even stronger than the normal ones. I can say with certainty that the effect is at least 3 times as effective compared to its counterpart in the trade right now." Lord Rosier stroked his chin slowly as he looked at the potion in his hand. "It is not verified by the Ministry of Magic, but I can make some calls and you will have certification in a few days, but you still won't tell me what your plans are." It was at that moment, when Lord Rosier said those words, that things in the room changed once again. He looked at his grandson. He had a vicious smile full of greed and arrogance. This was the second time that the youngest of the new generation made a similar impression on his mind. William put other potions on the desk: Peace Filter, Flame Protecting Potion, Wiggenweld Potion, Boil Cure, Oblivion Potion, Numbing Potion, Herbicidal Potion, Explosive Fluid. "I will lead the potions market." He pointed upward with his hand, "and take it to the next level." Lord Rosier could not bear the moment and lowered his head. Any other head of any family in the magical world would likely have sent William away with all his childish ideas, but he could not do that at this moment. The boy in front of him was evidence of what it meant to be a true genius. Lord Rosier looked at the calendar. It was years ago, during the same days, when William, who was known to all as a squib from nothing, transformed into a wizard, and not an average wizard like others in the magical world, but a genius among all students. Dumbledore had written to him to inform him of the accident of the mountain troll during the Halloween celebrations and how William killed him with basic magic. He had also received a prize that allowed him to go to Castle Bruxo, and there, as if it were a game, he captured one of the most wanted black wizards in the magical world. How would it be possible to treat William as children of his age? It was impossible. Besides, each of the potions he put on the desk defy each and every one of the knowledge of the magical world. There would be a revolution only with the revelation of the potions. Just imagine the problems that would happen if people found out that a boy of 12 was the one who designed them. Well. Only one word came out of Lord Rosier's mouth. William looked at the old man satisfied. We will open the store during my 3rd year, for now we need to finish the actual arrangements. I want to create some potions this year and we need to get all the permissions and patents for the special potions, plus I need to look for the right advertising. Are you planning on running an ad in the Prophet? Was the option any business in the magical world would use, but William wasn't just anyone. No, I have something more outrageous in mind, but first I need to go to Hogwarts. I have no idea what you have in mind anymore. Lord Rosier shook his head helplessly at the situation. Anyway, you must change your clothes, we must go buy some of your things for next year, I have the list of your supplies. Shall we go together? Asked William. I have some business to attend to in Diagon Alley, we can go together while you take care of your shopping. Now go and change your clothes, I don't want you to be seen in your Castle Bruxo uniform. Sure, of course. William walked out of the office, leaving the old man alone inside, who collapsed in the chair. He held the potion in his hand again and looked at it carefully. Chapter 68, Chapter 68, Nocturne Alley. Come on, William, hold my arm. Lord Rosier and William were in the main hall of the mansion ready to head for Diagon Alley. I just have to stay close so I don't lose any of my limbs. Won't you try anything funny, grandfather? What kind of picture do you have of me in your mind? William raised his shoulders and held his grandfather's arm, then his grandfather tapped the ground using his cane and they both disappeared from inside the castle to appear back in Diagon Alley. You know what to do while you're here. No trouble, no unnecessary attention, just buy what you really consider necessary. I think just that, right? Exactly, I don't want any complaints. Well, you can go about your own business, grandfather. Lord Rosier walked away, leaving William alone among all the beings in Diagon Alley. William checked his list of materials. He only needed books to complete what he needed for his 2nd year, then his attention turned to the books for the defense against the dark arts class and an evil grin appeared on his face. He started walking down the alley looking everywhere. He had been there a year ago, but unfortunately he hadn't had the chance to enjoy his visit. He had very little time to prepare before going to school, so this was his real first visit. Do my eyes not deceive me, is it you, William? William turned slowly. He had recognized the voice from the first second, but he had to confirm it. Rubeus Hagrid, the boy called his name as a smile broke out on his face. I saw the news in the paper. Hagrid patted William's shoulder a couple of times. Though personally I wish you were more out of trouble, 2 events in a single year. The Philosopher's Stone and Fenrir Greyback. It's trouble that seems to follow me, still I can't complain. Thanks to what happened with the Philosopher's Stone I was able to get clearance to attend Castle Bruxo. Anyway, what are you doing here, Hagrid? Hagrid held up a package. Repellent against carnivorous slugs, growled Hagrid, annoyed. They are ruining the cabbages. Now that he noticed there is no one with you, are you alone? Ah, my grandfather left my side. He had business to attend to, and as you can see I am no longer in South America. On this side of the world I am still the son of a dark wizard. They both continued walking together. Let's go buy the slug repellent. I want to get to know Nocturne Alley and get out alive. Hagrid was seconds away from giving up, but the image of William walking down that alley by himself crossed his mind, so he lifted his shoulders slightly. Even if I decided not to take you, you're likely to go in alone, and there's even more likely to be 1 or more problems. William could only nod calmly, and they both continued walking as if nothing was happening around them, of course except for the stares of some wizards in the vicinity who clearly recognized William from the news in the Prophet newspaper. The interior of Nocturne Alley was very different from Diagon Alley. From the atmosphere to the colors that dominated the surroundings, you could even tell the quality of the people who frequented it. This place is quite cozy, something worthy of my family, don't you think, Hagrid? In response to William's question, Hagrid only nodded slightly without saying anything else. He didn't know who might be around to hear. Then they both passed by some stores, among them Mr. Mulpepper's apothecary, where William purchased several potion ingredients of all possible categories. Hagrid was stunned. He was not expecting a purchase of that magnitude. all the things were ordered for an express shipment up to Rosier Manor in the afternoon. It was when they left the store that they noticed something strange, a boy who shouldn't be in that place. If you mean the famous Harry Potter, then you're right. The half-giant quickly ran down the alley to get to Harry before another dark wizard could get near him and hurt him. Harry! What the hell are you doing here? Willem could see the scene he saw many years ago in the movie from another point of view. He noticed how the boy jumped with fright when he heard Hagrid's voice in surprise. He decided to stay close to the half-giant since in this alley you could really see strange things, for example a hag or maybe some lycanthrope follower of Greyback that could recognize him. Hagrid, the boy had a bright expression on his face. He actually looked relieved to see an acquaintance in that place I missed, the flue dusts. Just to one side of the duo stood an elderly witch with a silver tray in her hands filled with strange whole human-like things. Needless to say anyone would dislike her. She had tried to get Harry to take one of her products when Hagrid appeared and was now jabbering various curses. William, who at the time did not have much of a temper, pulled out his wand and pointed it at the witch. "Keep quiet, witch, or I'll make your eyes the ones on the tray." "William!" exclaimed Harry, surprised to see his classmate. Hagrid looked at the two boys, gave the witch a look and then pulled both boys out of Nocturne Alley to where the sunlight was illuminating everything. "You two always find a way to get into trouble. Nocturne Alley is a dangerous place, kids can't go around wandering around, it's better if no one sees you in that place." "I could already tell." Harry lowered his face slightly, then wiped his face of the soot resulting from using flue powder. "What were you guys doing there?" It was William who stepped forward and answered. "Hagrid accompanied me to buy ingredients for my potions." "I see. Are you alone?" asked Hagrid, interrupting a thoughtful Harry. "I came with the Weasleys, but we got separated," explained Harry. "I have to look for them." Chapter 69, Chapter 69, Another Encounter. "We'll help you find the Weasleys. I'd hate for you to get lost again." Hagrid turned to look at William. "You mentioned earlier that they had to buy books." "Yes, they're all by Gilderoy Lockhart. Recreation with the Banshee, A Ride with the Evil Spirits, Vacations with the Witches, Trips with the Trolls, Trips with the Vampires, A Year with the Yeti, and of course, Trips with the Werewolves. I wonder if he would be able to travel with Greyback." William stroked his chin. "I'll be sure to challenge him in a duel." Hagrid and Harry looked at each other. They both knew trouble was coming. As to the collective knowledge, Lockhart was a powerful wizard. Of course to William this was nothing more than a bluff. He after all knew the truth. "Then it's settled, let's go to Flourish and Blotts." Ready to walk, they all stepped forward until when a voice was heard from the background. "William!" Everyone turned to see the identity of the person. Hagrid furrowed his brow and made Harry back up a little. William was a different case right now and there was nothing he could do as this was a family case. "Marcus." William mentioned the name of the individual in front of him. "Who is he?" asked Harry quietly, hoping no one would hear him besides Hagrid. "He is William's brother, Marcus Rosier, the first son of the Rosier family, a former Hogwarts student and as you can imagine belonged to Slytherin. Nothing good will happen if you go near him. Stay behind me at all times. This guy is crazy." The tone used in Hagrid's voice let Harry know that things were not at all simple in William's life. "What do you want?" asked William, turning away from Hagrid and approaching Marcus. "That shouldn't be the way to talk to your older brother, William. At home we were all worried about your performance in your first academic year. I was hoping for your return to teach you a couple of curses, but grandfather allowed you to go to Castlebrook, so we really were worried." William stared at Marcus directly. His older brother's tone of voice seemed pleasant, but that was all. The truth was that everyone in the house was disappointed that he was a Gryffindor. It was likely that the curses Marcus was talking about were the ones he wished to use on him as punishment, or of course maybe by second year they would want him to prove himself to be a true Slytherin within Gryffindor house. The truth was that there were a countless number of possible situations, but it didn't matter at this point. Marcus wouldn't try anything in public. Then before William noticed, Marcus was only 2 steps away from him. He reached out his arm and put it over William's shoulder. He slowly crouched down until they were at the same height. "A word of advice, my little brother, don't wander away from the castle and go home straight away. Drawing attention to yourself is not a good plan. He patted William's shoulder a couple of times and gave him a smile. Of course William at that moment felt as if he was in front of Greyback once again. He felt his whole body being squeezed and from his skin cold sweat dripped down. Marcus Rosier, no mediocre wizard, that was known among all active pure-blood wizards. Marcus continued on his way. He looked at Hagrid and Harry with a smile on his face. I hope my little brother won't be a bother to you. There was no response from the duo and Marcus didn't seem to mind. He just decided to walk, leaving everyone behind as if he had never seen them at all. I was arrogant, William said in his mind. He clenched his fists tightly. The victory against Greyback raised my ego to the clouds, but the truth is I'm still nothing compared to real wizards. It was impossible to forget Marcus' cold eyes as he looked at William. For the young wizard these eyes were different from Greyback's wild eyes. Marcus on the contrary was serene and cold, as if they were two icebergs of ice. William. Hagrid's voice reached the boy's ears, causing him to disconnect from his thoughts and return to reality. Are you all right? Yes. William scratched his head. Hagrid being one of his few friends, there was no need to worry him anymore. Come on, the Weasleys must be worried about Harry and I have some shopping to do. I thought we bought everything besides your school books. They are books, but they are not for Hogwarts. I need to buy Legerdemacy and Occlumency books. William started walking, leaving the duo behind, who after looking at the boy's back decided to follow him. Then as the group walked they were intercepted by the Weasleys and Hermione. Harry was glad to see them all. Hagrid looked around, but couldn't see William anywhere. The boy had become separated from the group, but at least he knew where he might be. William arrived at Flourish and Blotts. As expected, there were a lot of witches with books in their hands. They were all waiting for Gilderoy Lockhart, but that was not important for William. He had more important things to do. He went up to the second floor where he could find what he was looking for. Many shelves with a large number of books waiting for someone to take them. Flourish and Blotts is not as big as the library of Castle Bruxo. It does not have the variety of knowledge that was there, but it was enough for William at the moment. He began to walk through the shelves looking for titles that would be useful. Guide to Advanced Occlumency, Anthology of 18th Century Enchantments, Guide to Medieval Witchcraft, Animagus, Living with Legerdemancers. Choose your thoughts wisely. William's books include The Dirty Bloods and How to Brand Them, Spells and Counterspells, The Healer's Handbook, and Common Magical Ailments and Illnesses. William carried several books that were stuffed into his expansion box, plus the books that were required at Hogwarts for second-year classes. Everything was ready. It was time to go home. Chapter 70, Flourish and Blotts. Before William left Flourish and Blotts, in front of him his grandfather appeared with a book in his hand. Are you finished? Asked Lord Rosier without taking off the book. Yes, I got everything I need for this year. Then we must return to the manor. You must rest as much as possible before returning to Hogwarts. Lord Rosier closed his book and led the way for his grandson to follow. As they walked down the stairs, both Rosiers noticed some attention-grabbing discussion, then attention was diverted to them as well, one of the problems of belonging to a famous family. Thomas Rosier, the smug voice entered William's ears. They were pointing at his grandfather. Lucius Malfoy. The sharp eyes of the head of the family widened slightly. Perhaps only William had noticed it in those present. Seeing you old hermit in this place is amazing. Of course the reason you are leaving the old castle must be. Lucius focused his gaze on the boy behind Lord Rosier. Your grandson. What was your name? William. Ah, right. William Rosier. It's really wrong of me to forget the name of the young wizard hero of South America. Lucius had an arrogant smile on his face. He really enjoyed teasing others. Thomas the First, believe I heard that your son was selected into the great Gryffindor house, of which of course, the prestigious Weasley family is a participant, isn't it, Arthur? William didn't say anything at all. There was no need to, because the person in front of him looked like a bomb seconds away from exploding. He didn't show his emotions on his face. He remained composed at all times, but his index finger was tapping the elegant black cane he had left the manor with earlier. But that's not all. now they're mixing with muggles. Lucius' nose wrinkled, showing his displeasure. I wouldn't expect a Rosier to try to be just like the Weasleys, or does your grandson want to be a second Sirius Black? Lucius' attention went straight to Harry, who was standing between the Weasleys. History could repeat itself. Don't you think that's the best development of all, Thomas? Lord Rosier didn't stand still any longer and slowly descended, coming up to where Lucius was standing, and then opened his mouth. Watch your words, Malfoy, you're out of luck. The sparks between the two heads of the family were almost visible to everyone. Then Lucius out of nowhere turned around. Come on, Draco. Lord Rosier followed suit, turned to the door, not looking at anyone present, as if they were invisible. Follow me, William, we must return to the manor. Yes. Both Rosiers walked. Then William could see Hermione Granger among the Weasleys. It was the normal. Then Toothy made no real changes to the original story. They both walked down Diagon Alley for a moment, ready to disappear once more and return to the manor. Then out of the blue, Lord Rosier opened his mouth. She's your half-blood friend. Friend? Who? She was among the Weasleys, a half-blood. How did you know? Who do you think I am, boy? To the old man I look aside. I have decades of experience. I know when a wizard is pure blood born, even when they are trying to hide their identity. The same goes for half-bloods. They don't know when to back down, they don't know respect for purebloods, and they think our customs don't apply to them. Besides, she was looking at you since you were coming down the stairs. Yes. Seeing the expression on his grandson's face, Lord Rosier couldn't help but smile. No, that's a lie. She only noticed you when Lucius said your name. William said nothing. Instead he turned and crossed his arms. He didn't need his grandfather teasing him now. Very well. It's time to go back. I mustn't remind you to stay close to me at all times. At that moment both Rosiers disappeared from Diagon Alley. Arriving at the manor, William immediately returned to his room. He had many things to prepare before returning to Hogwarts. Everything is just as I remember it, William murmured, looking at the state of his room. There was not a speck of dust, and this was the responsibility of Verona, the mansion's house elf. Then as he approached the bed to rest, he could notice some cards stacked on the table to one side. Cards. William picked up the letters in his hands and gave them a glance to see who the sender was. This is a letter from Cho, and this is from Hermione. Even Hagrid wrote me a letter. They must have gotten here because I was in Castle Bruxo, and they must think I didn't want to reply. Chapter 71, Chapter 71, Platform 9 3/4. Is everything ready? Lord Rosier looked at William beside him, who only nodded. Very well then, let's go to Station 9 3/4, the Hogwarts Express awaits you for your second year. In the middle of the foyer of Rosier Manor stood everyone involved. Lord Rosier, who would be driving them all to the station, Leslie Rosier, who was now in her 6th year, Jessica Rosier and Damien Rosier, both in their 4th year, and William in his 2nd year. Leslie saw William come down and turned slightly to avoid looking at him, but William didn't mind at all. Both at Rosier Manor and Hogwarts Castle neither had any contact with the other, and it was good this way. Jessica and Damien were still childish. They believe everything they are told at school and take the whole House Wars thing as if it was a real battle, even if it was explained to them that Slytherin and Gryffindor are not necessarily enemies. They wouldn't understand. They are not ready for that kind of conversations. You know the process. Stay close and don't do anything stupid. The old man was speaking kindly, but the moment he tapped the ground with his cane the mood changed. Understood. William understood what he was referring to. He was the head of the family, and he was also the grandfather of those present. He knew how the young people acted, and it is not necessary to mention what can go through the minds of young people with excess power. Before they made a stupid decision to harm other family members, the best thing to do was to warn them severely. There were no words of reply. Then with another thump of the cane to the ground, they all disappeared from the hall, and then they were all once again at the train station. I think that's all. Take your belongings and get on the express as soon as possible. Grandfather's friendly voice had returned, but no one had any intention of challenging him. Everyone knew about his true personality. William did not take long to make his arrangements. The farewell with his grandfather was formal. There was nothing spectacular in the process, so once again he was on the Hogwarts Express, this time as a second-year student. although to be honest with him he already missed the tranquility of Castle Bruxo. He walked through the bums until he found an empty cubicle. They had arrived long before the departure of the express, so it was not complicated to find a good place to settle in for the long journey. He put his brown suitcase in the overhead compartment and left an old book to read on his journey. Then once again, just as he did every day, he disconnected from the real world and relocated to the world his mind generated by reading a book. Students passed by outside his cubicle. Not many noticed him immediately, others pointed at him and others just stared at him. Then all of a sudden a young woman stood still, looking inside as if she found something peculiar. The sliding door opened slowly but with a sound that forced William out of his state of concentration. In front of him was a character he had seen several times on the big screen, loved by many but hated by others, a young girl with a peculiar imagination that got her into a lot of trouble during her schooling. "You seem to like reading very much. Do you wish to read The Fussy One?" The young girl who belonged to the first-year students was of course Luna Lovegood, the eccentric young woman whom everyone in the future would call Lunatica or Mad Lovegood. Truth be told, William felt some bitterness in his heart every time he saw her in the cinema. She certainly wasn't normal, but there was no real reason to pick on her. "Sure," said William, reaching out his hand to take one of the magazines she was carrying in her arms. "I'll give it a try." "Perfect, I hope you like them." She just smiled and walked out of the cubicle as if nothing had happened. "No doubt she is the true representation of a free soul," said William in his mind. William took a look at the cover of the newspaper. It really was striking in its own way, maybe also a bit disgusting. The variety in the typography used just led everything to a chaos, and the colors used did not help much. On the other hand, each of the titles that should draw attention in this case just have a counterproductive effect. "I think I should read it another time." William sighed and folded the newspaper, placing it on his lap. He looked out the window at the students arriving on the platform and how it was getting more and more crowded. "Now that I think about it, this year Harry and Ron are having trouble getting onto the platform because of Dobby. They make the decision to use the flying car to get to Hogwarts. This will be quite good to see." "There you are," the shrill voice brought him out of his thoughts. Then looking beside him he could see her, one of the few Gryffindor students who dared to speak to him. "Hello Hermione," he greeted calmly. "Long time no see. I saw you at Flourish and Blots, but you didn't stop, plus you didn't answer the letters I sent you." William looked up slightly. "The letter arrived at my house, while I was in Castle Bruxo. I could not answer, and I think that if you want to know more about the experience it would be better to do it in person. As for what happened at Flourish and Blots, I don't think the atmosphere was right. It's like the one we have at the moment." William pointed with his book towards the people accompanying Hermione. "The prefect of our house looks at me as if he was seeing the most terrifying dark wizard in the world. The twins look at me as if they were creating some kind of horror story to scare the first years, and the youngest doesn't know what to do. The Weasleys are funny." "You really didn't change at all," she said with a smile. Chapter 72, Chapter 72, Path to Second Year. Due to certain circumstances, both Hermione and Ginny Weasley ended up sharing a cubicle with William, all because the rest of the cubicles were either full or there was only room left for one person. The twins had their affair with their friends, and Percy now had other worries. The little Weasley ended up staying with the responsible Hermione. No sign of either of them. Hermione went out several times to check where her two friends were, but to no avail. She then remained sitting across from William, who was still reading calmly. "But I saw them, they were right behind me before they entered the end," Ginny exclaimed worriedly. "Maybe they just went up in another carriage. We'll probably run into each other when we get to the castle. You have nothing to worry about, Ginny." Hermione was trying to calm the girl down. "You're right." The girl slowly calmed down. Then Hermione turned around to look at William, who had been silent. "What are you reading?" "Muggle literature, Don Quixote of La Mancha." One of the first editions of the book happened to be in the family library. William patted the book a couple of times. "I really thought you were reading something more interesting." The disappointment on Hermione's face was evident, but there was no way William was going to be bothered by it. "Are you trying to say that Muggle literature isn't interesting?" asked William in surprise. "You're disappointing Hermione. Besides, I spent the entire vacation studying magic. I think I should allow my brain a rest." I could read the news in the Prophet, everyone says they're heroes," mentioned Hermione. "Heroes?" William closed the book and looked out the window. "No, we only wished to obtain treasures and we were lucky enough to get out of danger without losing anyone's life. Now that I think about it properly, all of us who were there that day should be underground." William's expression was quite bright, unlike the cold words coming out of his mouth. All this produced different reactions in the girls in front of him. "Anyway, everything went well and I got everything I wished for." William settled back in the seat, crossing his arms behind his head. Studying at Castle Bruxo was an experience unlike anything you can imagine. The pyramids, the jungle, the library that seemed to be endless, and even the classes themselves, everything is really different from Hogwarts. William then began to relate everything he had experienced in his stay in South America. Hermione asked several questions and before long Ginny also became interested in the topic of conversation. William explained some of the basics of his classes at Castle Bruxo, the differences in schooling and even the quality of the teachers. He demonstrated some of the charms and spells learned, then he showed them some parts of his uniform that he took out of his storage box. "It's amazing how magic in the native peoples of a territory can vary to such a degree that to us it is completely unknown. When I think of how this would be possible in other places on the planet, I feel like Hogwarts is nothing." Looking at William's calm expression, no one could deny that he had truly changed in the short period of time since classes ended. "You really are very different from what my brothers describe." "Who said that?" was Ginny, surprising the duo. "Hey! Ah!" Feeling the stares on her, Ginny pulled back slightly and lowered her confident tone. "It's just... my brothers talked about you a few times during the vacations, and they said that you're a scary person." "But I am scary," William pointed out to himself calmly. "You're just making things more complicated for Ginny and you." Hermione looked at William with some contempt. "You don't talk to anyone at Hogwarts, and whenever someone says something about you, you just accept it. The year before you were even happy when they called you a little Death Eater. But you must admit it was a good nickname." William scratched his head contentedly. Ginny just stared at them, then let out a small laugh. "You really are different to the rumors. I want to believe that my brothers are wrong about you. I really don't care what they say about me, I just want to learn more about magic. For my part, they can call me whatever they want as long as they don't get in my way, then fine. Of course, if you want to learn anything, feel free to ask. I can explain anything that is in my area of research." William could see out of the express window the flying car for a split second, then a smile was drawn on his face. Plus, this year things might be a little more fun. The trio were able to eat some snacks and then continued to talk during the course of the journey until finally they were near the station and William was thrown outside the cubicle as he was the less predominant sex in the area and they all had to change their clothes, especially Ginny, who was now a first-year student. "Why am I the only one outside the cubicle waiting?" William asked himself as he sat on the floor to wait his turn. A couple of minutes later both girls came out of the cubicle with their uniforms. Hermione, as always, used everything according to the rules. On the other hand, in Ginny's wardrobe you could see that several things were slightly deteriorated, some because they were inherited from her older siblings and others simply because they were second-hand. "You really look like two spring flowers," said William with a bright smile that could have made any girl fall under other circumstances, but in front of William was Hermione the bookworm. "Yeah, better change your clothes before it's too late." William walked in with his head bowed yet. Once inside the cubicle he used his wand to make the Hogwarts uniform come out of the suitcase. He stared at it for a couple of seconds and then pulled the Castle Bruxo uniform out of storage. "It's disheartening that the entire Castle Bruxo uniform possesses such gaudy colors. I would really like to wear some of each. I know the headmaster would allow it somehow, but because of the colors this is a fantasy." William let out a sigh, then noticed the dragon leather boots of the Castle Bruxo uniform and the old-fashioned Hogwarts school shoes. He let out a slight chuckle. Outside the cubicle Hermione heard William's chuckle. "He's up to no good." Ginny looked at her intrigued and a couple of minutes later the cubicle door opened once more. Chapter 73, Income. The express had arrived at the station, the students began to descend quickly, then William approached Ginny, he patted her on the shoulder to get the girl's attention. "You must go with all the first years, Ginny, Hagrid will lead them." William pointed to the half-giant in the distance. She looked at Hagrid, She had seen him earlier in Diagon Alley, but my brothers. They'll be fine, they already know the way to Hogwarts, they're not first years, you are. Although Ginny was reluctant to the idea, in the end she just heeded and headed in the direction William indicated. We should go to the dining hall, shall we? William looked at Hermione, who was somewhat disconnected and was looking everywhere. They haven't shown up yet. They'll show up on their own. William crossed his arms behind his head and started to walk. Anyway, I'm going to the dining room, I want to eat something before any event. How can you be so calm? Hermione turned to reprimand William, but he was already several feet ahead, walking with total calmness. William. She was worried about her friends and it was hard to see William so calm, but the truth was that she couldn't imagine the reason behind this calmness. As Hermione continued to look at their surroundings, the duo finally approached the crowd of students entering through the large oak doors. They walked through the torch-lit foyer, which housed a magnificent marble staircase connected to the upper floors. Many of the students looked at William with different eyes than the previous year. Just to the right of his position was the door that connected to the great dining hall. He just had to follow the crowd like any other student. The enchanted ceiling was dark with stars all over the place, and then a voice called out to him. Rosier, I need to talk to you. William closed his eyes and let out a long sigh. From the tone of voice of the person calling him, it wasn't hard to guess that it was Professor McGonagall, professor of the Transformations class and head of Gryffindor House. She was calling him over all the students. Hermione and William turned. They came in contact with Professor McGonagall. It seemed her eyes pierced him straight through the heart. He almost felt he had done something wrong. Then Hermione and he looked at each other. They glanced down and noticed William's boots outside the school rules. That wasn't a good idea, she said, causing William to shake his head. I'll wait for you in the dining hall, just don't get yourself expelled. Sure, I'll work on that. They both separated. William walked past the students to get to where Professor McGonagall was standing. She looked at William's boots. Before you reprimand me, Professor McGonagall, I must excuse myself. I just wanted to keep a souvenir of Castle Bruxo, and the boots were the only thing that matched the Hogwarts uniform. You don't have to be scared, Rosier. It's not me who wants to talk to you but the director, and I think the dragon leather boots has its own charm. She had a slight smile on her face. Do you think so too, Professor? She looked at her boots more closely with a smile on her face. It's good to see you safe and sound, Rosier. You don't know what a fright you gave me when I saw you in the Prophet. She looked at William as if he was some kind of son. They both quickly made their way to a professor's office near the dining room. There was Dumbledore waiting there as he looked out one of the windows to the outside. William, it's nice to see your face at Hogwarts again. For a moment I came to think you wouldn't be back. Don't make such jokes, Headmaster. You know I would come back here even if you expelled me. They both stared intently. Dumbledore pulled from the sleeve of his robes a sheet of paper showing Greyback's moving photograph. Will he be transferred to Azkaban? Yes, and he will also receive the Dementor's kiss. Dumbledore looked closely at William's reaction but could find nothing. But before that there will be a trial to fully convict him. Your attendance has been requested to testify. Do I have to attend? Dumbledore nodded. You don't have to worry, I will accompany you so that everything will come to an end once and for all. Professor McGonagall, who was in the back, couldn't stand the silence any longer. That man has many charges against him. No matter what you say, Rosier, nothing will change the fact that he will receive a Dementor's kiss and justice will finally be done. She was absolutely right about it. She just had to go up there, answer some questions and go back to school. Nothing that could bring more trouble. It's just that somehow every time she's around Dumbledore she feels like a chess piece on an oversized chessboard. Maybe it's just her thing, but she still can't forget how she tried to sacrifice Harry in the original timeline, or how she made use of Newt Scamander in the past. William really didn't want to become another chess piece. I will tell you the day we will have to leave for the trial in advance, plus I will write a letter to your grandfather explaining the matter. Now you can go back to the dining room. William turned to leave. He really wanted to get out of that office as soon as possible. Being around Dumbledore only made him sick. Then before he left the voice reached his ears once more. Ah, William. Yes, Headmaster. You can keep the boots, they really do make a difference and can protect you from curses at the most important times. William stared at Dumbledore for a moment. Thank you. Chapter 74, Chapter 74, Second Year Dinner. As William left that small office, he walked away from Professor McGonagall. She had to receive the first years and guide them to their selection. William on the other hand returned at his own pace to the large dining room. He passed the oak doors and saw the 4 tables belonging to the 4 houses of the school. All were full of students and of course, they all seemed to know each other. William walked over to the Gryffindor table. He remembered perfectly well where his usual seat was, so he walked over there. The other Gryffindor members were watching him intently and avoided contact by moving away from his seat. Anyone who was at Hogwarts the year before knew about that post. Why do you always pick this post? Hermione was sitting across from William, then William looked towards the part closest to the teacher's table. Shouldn't you be with the Weasleys, near the professors? Is that the view you have of me? She stared at William as if she wanted to intimidate him, but for William it was simply impossible for Hermione to intimidate him. No. William shook his head slightly and then looked back up. Yes, well yes. Then the doors to the great dining hall opened once more, revealing Professor McGonagall with all the first-year juniors behind her, all formed in 2 rows walking straight towards where the hat was selecting and the teachers. There's Ginny. Yes. William saw some familiar faces. Among them were Ginny Weasley, Luna Lovegood, and Colin Creevey, the Harry Potter fanboy and son of Muggles. Do you think I can get into Gryffindor? Is your question really necessary? William looked directly at Hermione. We have 3 generations of Weasleys in Gryffindor House, not counting the previous 2 generations and these individuals' own parents, and you still doubt if this girl will get into Gryffindor. You have a point. Truth be told, at this point I already believe that the Sorting Hat only sends them to Gryffindor as soon as it hears their last names. Shouldn't it be the same story with the Rosiers? That's a great point, but as you can tell I'm different from my brothers to the core, and that's not the case with Ginny. But of course we can make a bet if you prefer. I don't make bets. Unable to do more, William stayed in his seat. He took out the book he was reading on the Express again, hoping this time to finish it while the selection ceremony was taking place. The pages turned at almost the same pace as the students were selected for their houses. Just as William expected, Ginny was selected in Gryffindor. Everyone applauded and then the ceremony came to an end. The headmaster gave his official speech, introducing all the teachers and of course mentioning the areas where students should not go if they wish to continue living. The moment he introduced Lockhart, the applause in the large dining room really took over. The girls really loved Lockhart. This time it was evident even to the blindest boy of all. Time for lunch? Asked William, closing his book. At the table there was quite a feast and everyone began to eat. Hermione was still worried about her classmates. Then William watched as Headmaster Dumbledore left the great dining room. That was the sign that the troublesome duo had appeared at the school. At the end of the welcome dinner, all the first-year students were guided by their prefects to their corresponding houses. Of course they also had their tour. William simply got up and walked out of the large dining hall. He wanted to take a nap as soon as possible. Will, an almost shrill voice stopped William's steps to leave the large dining hall. The voice was familiar, and although he could just turn a blind eye, he preferred not to. Cho Chang and her friend Marietta. It's good to see you ladies again. William smiled matter-of-factly. It's good to see you again too, Will. I heard all about what happened. It's lucky you weren't injured. Cho brought up the subject with a tone of concern. Still, Cho, you have to see Will directly. Things really seem to have changed for him. A year ago he wouldn't have talked to us in a similar situation, and now he even stopped. I think Castle Bruxo makes changes even for cold-hearted wizards like Will. Mariella mentioned, making William startle. You may be right, Mariella. William looked around. There were hardly any students left in the vicinity. Very well, girls. I think I should say goodbye for tonight. I have to get back to the Gryffindor room before I catch a new problem. With William's farewell there was a small graceful bow, retreating in a half-turn. Goodbye, William. Both girls shook their hands and withdrew to be on their way. This year things will be really entertaining. William walked forward, always keeping his mind's eye active. This year Ginny would open the Chamber of Secrets, and it was of main interest to know the position at every moment of the basilisk. He needed to gain points this year's, and the Chamber of Secrets was the main objective, that and a few others which needed their proper time. Arriving at the Gryffindor common room, all the students were gathered together as they engaged in conversation. Obviously they were happy to see each other after the vacations. Harry and Ron were also in the common room along with Hermione. William had no interest in either of them, so he just went upstairs. He needed to rest a lot more compared to other people. He may not have suffered a lethal wound from his confrontation against Greyback before, but the wound in his abdomen somehow always made him have less energy. Chapter 75, Chapter 75, A Deal for a Problem. The next morning was his first day of second year. As usual, he got out of bed before the rest and was ready long before them. He took out his books to carry them in his arms. Carrying them in the storage given away at Castle Bruxo would raise suspicions. Soon he was in the large dining room. There were already other students in the place, nothing to be surprised, so he sought his seat and proceeded to breakfast. A large tureen filled with oatmeal, platters of smoked herring, toast, and plates of eggs and bacon. As soon as students began to arrive in the large dining room, he decided to leave. He had to get to the classroom and he liked to walk at his own pace. Then he noticed a cat staring at him from a corridor. It was not difficult to guess the identity of this cat. Obviously it was not Professor McGonagall but Mrs. Norris, the cat that belonged to Argus Filch, the Watcher and Warden of Hogwarts. William looked at the cat and smiled, then she moved away, but it was difficult to fool the white-haired man. The truth is that inside the castle there were very few places that could escape the mind's eye. It was not only Mrs. Norris who was watching him but also Argus Filch himself, and the reason for this was not very difficult to guess. Knowing what was going on, William decided to divert his path, walk down other corridors a little further away from the ones that students would commonly select in those hours. There were even fewer portraits in those corridors, but William could feel Filch's gaze nearby, and so when he had reached the place he considered ideal, he stopped his steps. "The brilliant Hogwarts warden following a boy who hasn't made any trouble," said William aloud without looking back. Argus, who was hiding behind a pillar, raised an eyebrow and his hand shook slightly. Maybe he could show a brave failing when teachers are around, but the truth was he was quite the coward when it came to real battles. "You don't need to hide, it's better if we talk directly face to face." William turned and looked straight towards the pillar behind which Argus Filch was hiding. The latter didn't take long to come out with his ruined appearance and slightly erect posture. He was still trying to maintain his identity, looking at William over his shoulder. "Who said I was hiding?" asked Argus in annoyance. "Sure, it must be my mistake. The truth, after being a squib, my sensitivity to the presence of people is a bit higher than the others. I can feel when I'm being watched from far away. Maybe it's Mrs. Norris. I could have made a mistake." William turned once more and started walking, while in his mind he counted to 3. "Wait!" exclaimed Argus to stop William, who slowly turned to look at him. The orderly was hesitant in what he wanted to say. He looked like a child trying to ask his mother for money for candy. "How?" was the question that came from Argus' wrinkled lips. "Like what?" asked William. "How did you stop being a squib?" Finally, the question that William had wanted to hear since a year ago came from the lips of the Hogwarts warden, one of the most known squibs in the magical world and who most wanted to be able to manipulate magic, to the point that he envies the young wizards who enter every year, and to retaliate he punishes them. This was the perfect opportunity for William. "Do you want to know how I went from being a hero to a wizard?" asked William in an innocent tone and with a surprised expression. "I'm just curious." "I see. Well, it makes sense that the warden would want to know the information." William stroked his chin. "I'd like to help him, I'd really like to tell him, but grandfather told me I had to keep it a secret because it was important information." "What?" The expression on Argus' face had changed instantly. "So you're saying there's a cure for squibs?" "I didn't say that." "But you said it was your grandfather's secret." "Ah, that, but I can't tell you, warden. If I get found out, then I could be in trouble. Besides, I gain nothing from this." Argus clenched his fists tightly. He really was upset. He had finally discovered the cure for his condition, and yet he couldn't get it. What was worse was that a child knew the cure. William on the other hand stared at the orderly, who was shaking uncontrollably like a starving child looking for bread to keep on living, or maybe like a drug addict looking for that one thing that would calm him down. He was not one to enjoy people's suffering, but it was necessary at this moment. "We could make a deal though." It was a single sentence, but Argus, who was bent over looking at the ground, opened his eyes out of nowhere when he heard the voice of the boy in front of him. "A deal?" asked Flitch. "Yes, we can both make a mutually agreed deal and we can get a solution for this problem." William had a smile on his face and helped Flitch stand up once again. Flitch remembered William's fame. Not only did he help last year with the problem with the Philosopher's Stone, he was also praised by the professors and was named a hero when he stopped Fenrir Greyback's attack in South America. It was impossible that such a kind-hearted person would leave him there suffering when he had the solution in his hands, so a deal with this boy maybe couldn't turn out so bad. "Would you really help me?" asked the old orderly. "Sure, I just need a little time to brew the potion. Gathering the ingredients is a bit of a hassle." William scratched his head, then with a smile, "But sure, I'd like the warden to help me during my time at Hogwarts." "Help you?" asked Flitch. "Of course I could help you. From now on you won't have any problems at Hogwarts." "Perfect, I'll make sure to get the solution to your problem before the end of this year. You just have to wait a little while." William extended his hand and Flitch shook it with joy. It was also the moment he could see behind the young wizard a huge shadow that could cow any novice wizard. Chapter 76, Chapter 76, Potions. Gone were the days when William feared that Flitch would find him while he was sneaking through the corridors at night when leaving the library or for his visits to Hagrid's hut. He only had to fear the teachers and of course his headmaster. Only one day had passed since he started his second year and he already had one of his goals completed. Now he only had to advance in the next important points, but first he had to go to class. He didn't want to earn a punishment. The first of all the classes of his second year was one of the subjects in which William was currently specializing, potions, with the head of the Slytherin house, Severus Snape. Getting to Dungeon 5 was no problem at all. He had arrived just in time. Snape was approaching the classroom in the opposite direction to William. Both gave each other a look and William simply continued on his way as if William didn't exist at all. The truth is that the young wizard didn't care either. Once in the classroom he looked for an empty seat, among all the students and away from the golden trio. He really didn't need to stand out in his little trouble club, besides he didn't want to have Snape's hatred. "There will be your books on page 74. Today we will start with the flame protection potion." The muffled and somewhat slurred voice echoed in the silent classroom. All the students had great respect for Snape and preferred to remain completely silent so as not to draw the dark professor's hatred upon them. So while the class was underway and everyone was immersed in their own affairs, William concentrated on his. This was the perfect opportunity to increase his knowledge of potion to the highest degree possible. "What's wrong with your book, Rosier?" The voice came from behind William's back. He knew the owner of the voice was Snape, but he didn't want to see his face right now. William opened his book as requested. There was a drawing of the potion, the history of it, ingredients for its preparation and of course, the method of preparation. The only problem was that William's book had scratches all over it. There was almost nothing left of the original text. This was mainly because last year he had already practiced with this potion and his mastery of it was up to 68%. "I may have messed it up a bit while I was practicing." William tried to say it in a tone that sounded as delicate as possible. "Are you trying to say that in addition to practicing a potion that belongs in the second-year curriculum, you also made changes to the recipe that is practically perfect?" The Snape's voice sounded more ironic than usual. "Is that what you're trying to say, Mr. Rosier?" "Shit," he grumbled in his mind as he clenched his fists under the table. William felt that this year he was the target. Hermione could be annoying with her amount of answers, but William the year before had no mistakes in potions and also gave advice to many students. He may have transformed himself into a target without realizing it. In this case there are many ways out. Admitting everything Snape says would probably lead to a test of the potion in front of everyone, which is no problem, and it was obvious that the potion would be perfect, but it would generate cheers from some students and more hatred from Snape. In case he failed in the demonstration, it would be the mockery. In case he didn't accept the changes Snape mentioned, then he would be a mockery, and in case he didn't answer Snape's questions, then he would be a coward. William could feel how the gazes of everyone in the dungeon were on him. Out of the corner of his eye he could see Hermione from the other side. Even she seemed curious to the situation. Last year she witnessed the potion with her eyes, but she didn't have time to talk about it with William. Any of the possible ways to avoid the problem were at his fingertips. He just had to choose one carefully, but all the ways to solve the problem were also incredibly counterproductive. So while William was racking his brains thinking, an event occurred that no one could predict in an ordinary classroom. On the other side of the classroom an explosion occurred. Attention was directed to that spot. A young Seamus had a black face and was looking at everyone around him in surprise. Then Snape growled in his gravelly voice. "Finnegan." Snape gave William a look full of anger. He wanted to say something, but at that moment he had to go to the other side of the hall. To come back once more to get more answers out of William would not be well seen. It could even be related to a personal attack towards William. For the young wizard this was a path to a peaceful solution that he had not been able to have in his mind before. That is to say, this path really appeared because of an external event out of his control, but of course in the end it became the ideal solution. Sigh. William sighed quietly. Now he just had to get on with the potion. Snape will be busy for a while with Seamus' explosion. He had to deal with the aftermath of a failed potion. It was while William was looking in the direction of the failed enthesis potion that an idea popped into his head, one that meant 20% in the compression of the flame-protecting potion. Chapter 77, Chapter 77, Herbology, 1. Hogwarts Greenhouses. The second class William had been able to take in his second school year. Going through Snape just starting the year was already a big challenge, but that was no impediment for William to follow his school path for the day. Heading to the Hogwarts greenhouses was not at all complicated. There the Gryffindor and Hufflepuff students had their classes. The students congregated at the door of the greenhouses waiting for Professor Sprout, who approached with a determined step across the esplanade, accompanied by none other than Gilderoy Lockhart himself. In Professor Sprout's arms was a pile of bandages. It didn't take a genius to figure out what had been done with the bandages. Harry and Ron's adventure ended with severe damage to the box willow that Professor Sprout had to deal with, but if that wasn't enough, besides dealing with the box willow she had to endure Lockhart chattering incessantly around her. It was obvious she was annoyed. "Hey, what's up?" Lockhart greeted the group of students with a big smile. "I was just explaining to Professor Sprout how to perfectly cure the box willow. But this doesn't mean that I know more than her in the area of botany, but the complete opposite. It's just that my experience in my travels can support her in her treatment." William couldn't help but shake his head. Listening to Lockhart's arrogant tone was simply a pain in the ass. Just hearing him boast about his lies was enough to cause embarrassment to others. "Greenhouse 3 today, boys." It was Professor Sprout's instruction that he went on his way. She was clearly displeased. While Harry was caught by Lockhart, William was able to position himself in a good spot inside the greenhouse, to one side of Neville, meaning he was a little further away from the Golden Trio. It was the important thing at the moment. Mandrix mentioned William as he looked at the plants placed on the long table. "Do you know them, William?" asked Neville nervously. You could tell from his face that he still wasn't prepared to deal with Mandrix. "I can tell by your face how terrifying these plants are. These are still babies, and although their scream can cause damage to eardrums, it is not totally lethal, unlike their counterpart when mature. The screams of these plants can be compared to that of a banshee. Amazing, don't you think?" William explained calmly to the nervous Neville, but this only worsened the state of the poor boy, who looked at the Mandrix as if they were the most disgusting being in the world. "Still, you have nothing to fear." William put his hand on one of the leaves near the Mandrix crown. "There is a way to extract a baby Mandric without it screaming. At this stage it is still sensitive all around, but more sensitive on this leaf. It only takes a tug to make the Mandric go to sleep for a while." Are you sure it works?" asked Neville. "It's a trick I learned while I was in Castle Bruxo. My guardian was pretty smart and explained a lot of things to me that she figured out on her own, but it's best to show it to you in practice." It was at that very moment that the door to the greenhouse opened, revealing a witch with short, grey, wavy hair. With clothes full of patches and tattered in several places, covered lightly with dirt, that was the head of Hufflepuff House, Professor Pomona Sprout. "Good morning everyone," she greeted with clear enthusiasm as most of the students chatted among themselves, then she repeated once again with a more intense tone to get attention, "Good morning." "Good morning Professor Sprout," said the students in unison, responding to the teacher's greeting. "Welcome to Greenhouse 3, second-year students, gather round everyone." She motioned with her hands for everyone to approach the long central table that ran the length of the greenhouse, replete with planters, 2 for each student, 1 with a mandrake and 1 empty. All the students stepped forward until they were only inches from the table. "Today we are going to replant mandrakes. Can anyone tell me the properties of mandrake root?" At the teacher's question, as expected, it was Hermione who raised her hand for attention. "Miss Granger," Professor Sprout called her name. "Mandragula or mandrake is a very potent restorative." She used a tone that gave the impression, as usual, that she had swallowed the textbook. "It is used to return people who have been transformed or enchanted to their natural state." "Excellent, 10 points for Gryffindor," said Professor Sprout contentedly. "Mandrake is an essential part in many antidotes. But, however, it is also dangerous. Who can say why?" Professor Sprout's eyes swept the entire room in less than a second. It was obvious Hermione would raise her hand, but she wanted to see someone else actively participate in the class. Then she could see it, the student she could least expect at the moment. Neville Longbottom raised his hand above his own head. "Longbottom," she called, ignoring Hermione. The boy looked to William at his side, who with a wave of his hand caused him to raise his arm, falling for Professor Sprout's call. "The cry of a mandrake can be lacking in some cases and can cause death if care is not taken when handling it," Neville replied sheepishly, but nothing teasing to the young boy. "Excellent Longbottom, 10 more points for Gryffindor," she exclaimed loudly, raising the little boy's happiness a little. Chapter 78, Herbology, 2. "You did well." Neville looked at William beside him. It was true that he had caught him off guard, as it was also true that on his own he would not have gathered enough courage to raise his hand. This was something William himself knew perfectly well. It was still too early for Neville's true colors to be picked up by those around him. Still, William was not willing to wait for that development. All it took was a couple of pushes and Neville would grow up. All the students were curious about the mandrakes. It was the first time many of them would have first-hand contact with a dangerous magical creature of this level. "Come forward and take a pair of earmuffs for each of you," said Professor Sprout, urging everyone to come to her table. William was no exception. Of course, unlike him, they all ran and hurried, not to take the only pair that was neither stuffed nor pink, which of course was taken by William to the surprise of many, but William himself didn't seem to mind in the least. Everyone looked at Professor Sprout, who was explaining the instructions for the use of the earmuffs and the signal to take them off. Putting on the earmuffs was one of the most important tasks of the class, and everyone was ready when Professor Sprout rolled up her robe, put both hands on the stem of the plant, and then pulled it out of the pot. William was no stranger to the appearance of the juvenile mandrake. He had seen it in the movie version during his past life and worked with mandrakes during his summer at Castle Bruxo. Still, the appearance of a weeping baby with the light green color and spots was not a sight to be enjoyed. It was simply preferable not to see it. Professor Sprout shifted the mandrake to an empty pot larger than the previous one and quickly covered it with compost to the point where only the leaves of the plant could be visible, shook her hands to remove the soil and held up her thumb. Then everyone removed their earmuffs. "Our mandrakes are still young, their cries do not meet the conditions to be considered mortal," she explained calmly. Simply, this for her was a minor matter, but for the students in front of her all this was new. Even so, the cry of young mandrakes is capable of rendering them unconscious for a few hours, and as I am sure none of you want to miss your first day of school, make sure you are wearing the earmuffs perfectly while working. I'll let you know when it's time to retire. You will work 4 students per tray. We have enough pots here." Teacher Sprout gave the directions for all the students, while William had to join a group. His first day and already he had to socialize again. Then it was enough to turn around to see the expressions of his surroundings. Sigh. William gave a long sigh. "I'm not in Castle Bruxo," "Here I am a morph wizard again," he said to himself in his mind. "What do we do, William?" Looking to his side, Neville stood still as a statue, waiting for William to do something. Seeing the young man at his side, William wanted to say something, but the words didn't come out of his mouth. Instead, a faint smile was drawn on his face. "What else are we going to do?" William stepped forward. "We need to look for our group members. Maybe it won't be just for this class in the future." "Oh, right." Even if William's fame is rather obscure due to his family, enough had been fixed with the rumors about last year's events, plus appearing in the profit for the capture of Greyback. It was enough to draw a bit more attention in a positive way. Then there was this to make use of. "Workmates?" A young blonde-haired girl asked the question, looking directly at William in surprise. "Are you sure?" "Why wouldn't I be? I thought you were joining the famous Harry Potter and your friend Granger the know-it-all. You know you're famous now too." "I've always been famous. I'm William Rosier. Besides, I'd rather be with Neville. He needs more help and my Castle Bruxo experience might be perfect right now." "Castle Bruxo?" she asked, surprised. The rumors were real. The prophet never stated what you were doing in Castle Bruxo. It only mentioned that they were students and no one was sure, but it was true. "You went to Castle Bruxo as an exchange student. I will join your group." She extended her hand towards William. "I'm Hannah Abbott. Nice to meet you." "William Rosier, the pleasure is ours." William returned the greeting, then it only took a small bump with his elbow for Neville to step forward. "Neville Longbottom, a pleasure." They already had 3 people in the group, only one member was missing. Then before they could start looking, someone else appeared out of nowhere. "May I join your team?" It wasn't hard for William to recognize the girl in front of him, Parvati Patil, Harry Potter's partner during the Winter Ball in the future when the Triwizard Tournament takes place. Hannah and Neville looked at William as if waiting for William's opinion. "Of course you can join, anyone is welcome." "Thank you very much." The 4 team members were finally assembled, ready to work. They all moved to prepare the materials. "Is it true that you defeated the werewolf using forbidden curses?" asked Hannah as they moved the soil with compost, but William shook his head. "The truth, there were some curses, but they were not part of the forbidden ones. They are simply things I learned in various books, but the work was done by many students. The enemy after all was quite strong." William explained a bit of the combat against Greyback firsthand, making the trio of the group surprised. As he told the story, they prepared the materials for the work, then the time to transplant the mandrake had finally arrived.